Hello, welcome to the Sunday morning Golden Bough podcast. I'm joined by the lovely producer Jordan and Osik from Northern India. Today we are going to talk about chapters 41 and 42 from the abridged version of the Golden Bough. Those titles, respectively, are named Isis and Osiris and the Sun. So before I get into a discussion of some of the topics we're going to talk about today, I will say hello to our panel. Hey guys.
Hello. I dressed up as Jackie O today.
Or Isis, which one are you? Are they
Yeah.
the same? Right.
Yeah.
I
Good
love,
morning.
in case people don't know, if they haven't put this together yet, we're doing an Egypt theme, obviously, to correspond to the chapters that we're talking about here. And if you are unfamiliar, so the first time you ever watched one of these episodes, oh boy, I slept 3 hours last night, so you might want to watch another to get a full effect of who I am. But what I try to do here is to map the themes and motions of the Golden Bough onto the geopolitics and the events of the modern world stage of the 20th and 21st century. And I knew this was going to happen because of the run up to this chapter and how many correspondences we were able to find between Jackie O, Jackie Kennedy, and ISIS. And we're going to be going longer today because usually I try to have like 17 slides. I think I have 25 or so today. And many of them are going to be dedicated to that topic. And of course, also JFK as Osiris. So just to talk about some of the things we're going to be discussing today, this rice theme that we picked up on a long time ago in regards to the moon speech and it being a potential vegetative fertility ritual is much deeper than I ever anticipated. And it took this chapter on Isis for me to get deeper into it. We're also going to be looking at the coincidence of the King Tut exhibit that opened in Washington, D.C. During the Kennedy administration. I want to look deeper at some symbolism between JFK and corn. I have here the anthropomorphic corn figure. And in general, I want to think about both of Isis and Osiris as these agrarian harvest figures and what it means to the Maha movement, to the Make America Healthy Again movement championed by RFK Jr. And I think really late last night as I was going over my notes, I think doing the discussion with Bays Lit on T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland and the Golden Bough perhaps has offered a pretty profound insight into all of this. We're also going to be looking at emeralds and their association with Isis and Jackie, the turbulent or stormy relationship that she had with Madonna. We're going to look closer at the books of Joseph Campbell that she edited. I got the second one. There are actually two. The Power of Myth we've talked about before, but I think there's a biography that she did called Fire in the Mind. I've not had a chance to really get into it, but we're going to look at that a little bit today. I want to examine her close confidant and designer, Oleg Cassini, and how he admittedly designed many of her clothes to look like she was an Egyptian princess or queen. And so I think that's going to be very important when we have that revelation and look closer at some of the events that her clothing is tied to. Also, something that has been going on throughout this conversation is when she first may have started to identify with ISIS, if she ever did. I think it's open for conversation. I mean, the best proof that we have of this is the work that she did with Jonathan Cott on Isis and Osiris. But she was first introduced that I was able to find to ISIS themes in college. And of course, we're going to look closer at Sirius. And I want to have some commentary on this controversy that erupted this past week with Trump and the healer image that he put out there. I think our work here on the Golden Bough will help us understand what's going on with that in ways that other people may have missed. So if any of that sounds intriguing to you, you should stick around. All right. What do you think, guys? Did you enjoy preparing for this week?
Yeah. You missed out on Cassini. You were supposed the Cassini thing, the designer.
I thought I said his name.
You did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I said we were going to be looking at the clothes that he designed specifically for Jackie to channel the Egyptian princess.
Oh, okay. I apologize. But yeah, I'm
No,
excited.
that's
You might
okay.
have said a different name. Or
I thought I did. Well,
No
look,
worries, no
we'll go back to
worries.
the videotape. I mean, did you think
The
I missed it
Mandela
too?
effect. The Mandela effect is
Oh
going on.
God, am I hallucinating from lack of sleep?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into this one. I've really been enjoying dipping into the more extended Golden Bough. It's to me much easier to read. I don't know
Yeah.
why. There's more
Do
content
you-
to it, but it's easier for me to get through. And the ISIS chapter is not very long. I'm very tempted to make a little audio book of the ISIS
you
chapter
should. You should.
because it's
You
only a few
should.
pages.
You should. I'll upload if you want to do that. I'll upload it to my channel. That'd be great.
Great. I could do that
Okay.
today while I'm
Yeah.
in my eyeliner.
Great. Okay. So let's get into it if that's all right. So one of the first things I wanted to do, we talked about the we've talked pretty extensively up to this point about how Sirius is connected to ISIS, and I did this little research dig, and I was wondering whether or not the helical rising of Sirius could be connected to this chronotype of July 16th that is associated with these major world events, such as the Trinity test, the Apollo launch, and the death of JFK Jr., not to mention the release of Catcher in the Rye, which I want to address at some point. And I was disappointed because I was looking at it from the perspective of the Northern Hemisphere. But then I asked myself, well, what about ancient Egypt? Because I knew a little bit about star declination from studies of cosmology. And sure enough, it actually the Sirius could be spotted in July 16th in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. But it's not just that for every degree north you go in latitude, that it pushes the date back of the sighting of the Sirius star. There's also something known as axial precession, which has shifted the seasons and the date of the Sirius sighting 15 to 20 days or so. And this has to do with the wobble of the Earth. I'm not going to get into physics lessons or contend whether or not axial precession is in fact the case, but the reason why I bring this up is that it's not just the movement of latitude that accounts for the discrepancy in the time of viewing Sirius, but also this matter of axial precession. And someone can go deeper into that, but I wanted to bring that to our attention. And so I guess we can kind of speed to the next one unless someone wants to weigh in on this. I mean, axial precession from a cosmological perspective is an utterly fascinating thing. I just know that we have like a lot to cover today. But
Just
I did
one
want to
thing
offer that point of
Absolutely.
clarification. Sure, go ahead.
for the gematria bros out there. So I found that August 11th is a specific date for a lot of people. I think 8/11.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
what's going
yeah.
on 8/11?
I mean, people talk about like 8/11 being related to the Great Earthquake. They reference it with Revelation 8/11, and they said this is the Great Earthquake.
Interesting.
Yeah. 8/11 in like 8/11, 9/11, and 3/11. Those are like specific dates because 3/11, they declared the pandemic and things like that. So
Yeah.
these are like important dates for people in the know. And like what is 9/11? It's like 8 months and 11 days. So it's like literally that. So yeah.
Well, and we have reason to believe that there might be something going on with Sirius and 9/11 because I have that Sirius the Hero Dog book, which we'll talk about later, and how it's positioned between the Twin Towers, and whether consciously or unconsciously, it seems to be channeling ISIS in some way. But I've not gone deep into it. I actually got a copy of Sirius the Hero Dog. I've not had a chance to look into it, but it should be a pretty breezy read since it's a kid's book. So we can go to the next one. This is going to be about where Jackie may have first developed an adoration for ISIS. I don't know. It's on the table as a possible place. I finished last night the Thayer biography on Jacqueline Bouvier, Jacqueline Kennedy, and it was a pretty breezy read, but there were a lot of really interesting details that occurred to me along the way. One of them was this relationship that she had with one of her professors at Vassar. I've mentioned this before, that Jackie began her collegiate career at Vassar, but then finished up at George Washington. I think she was there for her first 2 years, and then she spent a year at the Sorbonne studying abroad, and then she finished up at GW. She had a very interesting academic career arc. I don't know if anybody knows this, but one of her first jobs out of college was that she was a photographer. which is great. And one of the first people that she photographed was her future husband. She actually photographed him for a defunct magazine. I believe it was called the Washington Herald. And she used to do kind of these slice of life little profiles or whatever. Anywho, she had this lifelong relationship with one of her Vassar professors that is mentioned in the Thayer book, and her name was Helen Sanderson. She was a professor of English at Vassar, and in the Thayer text, it's mentioned how much Sanderson was responsible for her love of Shakespeare, in particular, Antony and Cleopatra. And this is one passage from Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. Octavia says, in the common showplace where they exercise his sons, he there proclaimed the kings of kings, great Media, Parthia, and Armenia he gave to Alexander. To Ptolemy he assigned Syria, Cilicia, and Phoenicia. She, inhabitants of habiliments of the goddess Isis. So I have not had a chance to go deep into it, but there is some esoteric Shakespearean scholarship out there that really the whole play of Antony and Cleopatra is an induction into the Isis mysteries. I don't know much about that. I can't speak on it outside of that is a thread of research that individuals have pursued. But I would say this would have been one of the first places that I can document that Jackie would have been exposed to Isis as a figure, as a young woman. Of course, she was sort of swimming in these ideas through her love of literature and art and the relationship she had with her grandfather, who was writing these poems that reference ancient mythology. So it could have happened much earlier. But this is one particular place where we can find the connection between her and Isis. Now, I had prepared here in this other image to talk a little bit about the Shakespeare play, which we've looked at in previous podcasts about how they performed like the murder of Duncan and these other excerpts from Shakespearean plays at the White House that seemed to foretell Jack's early demise. I had thought that they had performed excerpts from Antony and Cleopatra. That's why I had this arrow pointing to this actress named Margaret Phillips. She's actually dressed as Helen of Troy. I was mistaken. She's not Cleopatra there, but she was such a mainstay in Shakespearean theater, and she was pretty well associated with Cleopatra, just not that night. So I want to offer clarity on that. So I'll pause there and get some response from you guys.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I like this play. Just that, and I don't think I've never heard this line of inquiry, but yeah, I'm happy to pursue it. So yeah, that's all
About
I have
the
to.
ISIS mysteries,
Yeah,
in Antony and Cleopatra?
yeah, I think that would be fruitful because I've seen Shakespeare's mysteries going like to far off places. I think
Yeah.
you might have heard about. Okay, you have heard about the weird thing. There was also another guy
Yeah.
who associated his collection of sonnets that were published after his death with like the all the mysteries of the pyramids and everything. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty interesting. Also, like the idea of Shakespeare writing about these things is pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
for
these were the
sure.
only sources available for antiquity. Who else was writing about anything else? Like only the Greeks wrote. He literally lifted lines from their books and pasted them in his plays. He did not even change anything sometimes. He's like very.
Yeah, I don't know where he lifted this from. I don't know if he was getting a lot of this from Plutarch. That seems to be where a lot of the Isis
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Osiris stories all go back to.
He was. So
What do you
yeah,
think, Jordan?
Shakespeare is.
Yeah, maybe Ostick would have gone here, but in general, just the role of Shakespeare and what stories he revitalizes for public consciousness is interesting to say the least.
Definitely a vehicle that forever acquaints us with these stories, right?
Absolutely. And today, too, you could almost say like Christopher Nolan might be an example of somebody who is playing a similar role.
Sure. Sure. Um, one thing to point out here, and that we'll develop this throughout, is how much the these Egyptian princesses were really seen as a repetition of the spirit of Isis, whatever that really means. I'm not some sort of expert on here, but you can see that here in the habiliments of the goddess Isis. So when we see Jackie aligning with Isis imagery, I think it's important for us to take that into consideration. Something else I'll just say about Helen Sanderson here is that she would visit Jackie in the White House and whatnot. So they really did stay very close for a lot of her life.
Yeah. There was
That's the
such
only image I could find of her, though.
not to like I'm detouring a little bit, but there is so much obsession with Egypt and the architecture of Egypt and the magic of Egypt. When we went to Thomas Jefferson's house last summer or in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
they mentioned that he was obsessed with Egypt. And I haven't dug enough into what people were accessing, like what
Yeah,
particular literature. Was it Plutarch? Was it other things that were bringing this to the forefront for the American founders? But then that continues into the Kennedy era and really even continues today. There's this constant obsession with Egypt and the imagery of Egypt, and a reinterpreting of it, or even in some cases maybe a very shallow lifting of it and repurposing within
maybe.
American
Yeah,
culture.
so the proper term for it, and I've not had a chance to become some sort of expert on it, but I have run across it here. It's called uh, Egyptomania or something like that. That really in the 19th century, like everybody lost their minds for Egypt. That's why if you go around like American graveyards, you see so many obelisks. They're not, I think that has enriched my perspective. Like I think previously I was like, oh, I see an obelisk. That's a Freemason grave. That's not necessarily the case. I think, I think even the uninitiated were fanboying and fangirling about Egypt for whatever reason, and how it got started and what catalyzed it. I mean, I think it'd probably be an oversimplification to say it was completely a Freemasonic enterprise. It seems to have gripped the public more widely. Like, why are, the Washington Monument wasn't built until the 19th century in the midst of all of this. Like, what would George Washington have even thought about that? He'd be like, wait, you're building an obelisk to me? Like, what do I have to do with this?
Yeah, I wonder too if it is sort of a course correction for how far we've gone into materialism. And this is on my mind because of the conversation Gordon White had with Vanessa, I might be saying her name wrong, McNeil from Magical Egypt on his podcast several months ago. And they were talking, they just brought up how Gordon was observing, we're a very materialist culture observing a non materialist culture, Egypt, and everything we've studied so far here. There is a big fixation around the Osiris myth about the afterlife and preparing for that, and basically things that are outside of this realm. And I wonder if this obsession is maybe in Jungian terms, like not terms, but in Jungian concepts, maybe an overcorrection because
Mm,
we've really over indexed on one plane of reality, one part of our psyche, one part of the human experience, one piece of the unus mundus, so that it's
hmm
a way that we can kind of go outside of ourselves and find something that acts as this counterweight for us to reintegrate.
That's interesting. I like that. I like that idea. Well, I don't mean to cut it short. It's just
Not at all.
we got
There's
to keep
so
trucking.
much.
There is so much, and it's just it's going to just get wilder and wilder. So, Jordan, I think this is the first one I have you reading for. Is that correct?
I think
I could be
so.
wrong. Yeah. Would you mind narrating for us?
Absolutely. Isis is far harder to define than Osiris, bearing so many attributes and epithets that she was called the many named, the thousand named, and the myriad named. Yet beneath this complexity lies a core identity as the corn goddess, the natural counterpart to Osiris as corn god. Ancient sources link her directly to the discovery and introduction of wheat and barley. At her festivals, stalks of these grains were carried in procession to commemorate the gift she gave humanity. Diodorus, drawing on Manetho, says that Isis found barley while sacrificing to ancestral kings and showed the ears to Osiris and Thoth, which is why the Greeks identified her with Ceres or Demeter. At harvest, Egyptian reapers beat their breasts and lamented over the first sheaf while invoking Isis, the same mourning rite for the slain corn spirit. Her epithets include creaturess of green things, green goddess, lady of bread, lady of beer, and lady of abundance. Brugsch calls her not only the creatress of vegetation, but the green cornfield personified. She is even titled Sochit, meaning cornfield, still used in Coptic. Greek and Roman artists frequently depicted her with ears of corn on her head or in her hands, and hymns describe her as the queen of the wheat field and mother of the ears of corn. Thus, Isis embodied the fertile, life giving power of the grain, completing the agricultural cycle with her husband, Osiris.
All right, thank you very much. So on the far right here, we have an alchemical drawing done by Athanasius Kircher on Isis. It's a great drawing. I particularly enjoy this, where you can see the stalks of wheat and barley coming out of the crown, the hair of Isis. So I think that's going to inform a lot of what we're going to talk about here in this slide, specifically Jackie's connection to beer. She is a lady of beer. The Vassar a mascot is a brewer. I believe it's named after Matthew Brewer. I think he was a brewer. So, and you might, Austin might groan, no, that's not strong enough. I tend to agree, but let's go a little bit deeper. I mean, I went to University of Richmond for undergrad. Am I like somehow an arachnid, like a spider or something? But it is an element that the unus mundus or the collective unconscious can take advantage of. Something I did find interesting, the signature hairstyle of Jackie O, at least early in her public political profile, was attributed to beer. She did something known as a beer rinse. I'm not exactly I'm not exactly certain on the particulars. Maybe Jordan can speak to this a little bit, but she would, I think, wash her hair in like flat beer. And I think the fermentation process or something like that would actually make her hair poof up and make it bigger than it would have been if she just used regular shampoo. Which I had never heard that this was a process that's available to people. And that's closer to the idea of Isis actually having stalks of wheat and barley growing out of her hair. I mean, that's pretty close. And then also we talked about the verdure, the greenness associated with Isis. Well, we clearly see that with Jackie at her funeral. We've talked about the lilies that were on her funeral casket, but just when I was thinking about images of green, I couldn't help but think about the entire arrangement that was done on top of the casket. It definitely seems to be exploding with vegetative fertility. Or vigor or essence or whatever. And so I feel like that image is important for our consideration, whether or not she actually is some sort of archetypal eruption of Isis. Now, the ancient Egyptians were not big rice harvesters, okay? I mean, it's just not really the climate that this particular crop was grown in. However, as we've seen with JFK and the moon speech, rice is somehow important to the story of JFK and Jackie. So here on the left, we see Jack wearing a pretty funny hat. This is a rice hat. Well, why is Jack wearing a hat that has all this glued on rice? In 1959, when he was a senator, he and Jackie went to a harvest festival known as the Rice Festival. I think it was in Crowley, Louisiana, or something like that, and were really the guests of honor at this procession. And he was made to wear this hat. So in a way, they were kind of like ceremonial king and queen of the Rice Festival. Although there is like a younger rice princess that we'll look at. There's a picture of Jack being associated with her. And I think just in general, having another crop associated with this couple is pretty strong. And then I was just like, how much rice is associated with Jackie and JFK? It's not just the moon speech. It's not just the rice festival that they attended in 1959. It's the hotel where some very significant speeches and events happened in JFK's life. The speech where he had to, I don't want to say disavow, but establish his independence from the Pope happened at the Rice Hotel in Houston, Texas. And then the night before he was assassinated, they stayed again at the Rice Hotel in Houston, Texas. So there's at least 4 episodes. You could say the Rice Festival that they went to in Louisiana in 1959. It's not that big of a deal because he was, at that time, he wasn't as famous as these other things. But where he was the day before the assassination and this speech and the moon speech, 3 out of 4 of are massive events in the JFK presidency. So I started to put those into a table. If we can go to the next one, Jordan. I think that's the slide. So I put these in a table, okay? And the Rice Festival happened in October of 1959. The Rice Hotel speech about distancing himself from the Pope happened on September 12th, 1960. And then again, he did the moon speech on September 12th, 1962. And then he stayed November 21st at the Rice Hotel the day before the assassination. I was like, okay, so we've got Rice and it's centering around September 12th. And I had just finished, last night I finished the Thayer book, the biography on Jackie. And I was like, oh, September 12th. Do you know what September 12th is? Jordan, if you could progress to the next slide. It's their wedding anniversary. I only know this because I read the Thayer book and I made a mental note of it. It's like, oh, one day after 9/11, da-da-da-da-da. Jackie and JFK were married on September 12th, 1953. And then he goes and gives the Catholic speech on their 7th wedding anniversary. And then he gives the moon speech on their 9th wedding anniversary. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I feel more confident than ever before. Because clearly this had to be on their mind. Now, it's our wedding anniversary today, and I'm going to announce that we're going to the moon and we have this project named after a sun god who's going to be conquering this lunar feminine body. Okay. See, it's like us, like it's our wedding, but then the wedding's going to happen in the sky too. Like maybe they just we're like, what are we caught up in this crazy play called life? I guess we're just predestined to be these people. These are highly educated individuals who are much more versed in mythology than the average person is today. I'm sure it crossed their mind at some point. But when we talked about the vegetative ritual of the moon speech, I don't want to say I was pulling it out of thin air, but it was more of a reach than it is now. I think it's more solid to say that something about the alchemical sacred marriage was going on with the moon speech when you start looking at the stacking of these different rice events and the date in which they occur. So this blew my mind. I feel like this was like a major aha moment. Apparently there was all kind of rice thrown at the wedding. I could not really find an image of maybe the cameras weren't sophisticated enough to capture the rice in motion, but rice in this day are forever emblazoned in their minds. Okay. Thoughts?
This is insane, man. It's great.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, me? Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm speechless right now.
You just kind of, it's just kind of like, it is like that, right? It's like,
I was
I couldn't
thinking
believe it.
if you could connect some more examples of JFK being related to rice, because other things I can understand, the alcohol thing, and I mean, even I thought like maybe him opening and inaugurating dams could connect back to the rice things because he's like providing
Yeah,
water
of
and
course it
covering this
does.
land. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does.
So they complement each other very well. So like he's
It
growing
does.
something that cannot be grown in Egypt. So yeah, I think Jordan should
Yeah,
take over.
I'm not saying that I have exhausted all the rice connections. I did not. I think maybe out of the corner of my eye, I heard about this or saw something about this rice festival like weeks ago. But when I came across him wearing the actual hat of rice, I was like, oh my God, this is insane. This is insane. Because he had a very strict policy. That's also the thing about this. He would there was a previous president, I don't know if it was Coolidge or Wilson or something like that, that wore a hat, and or maybe it was a headdress. I think it was an Indian headdress, and was like massacred by the public. And there's like this long-standing rule in like presidential politics that you don't wear funny hats because the press will be really cruel to you. That's why he didn't wear the white hat that was given to him in Dallas. He's like, I'll wear it in the future at some point, because he didn't want to have a bad photo op. And then here he is just wearing a rice hat. Like, how did I never see that photo before? Is this an example of the library angel reshaping reality? It doesn't really feel like that. I think it's possible I could have missed this one, but there's probably more rice connections than even I could dig up for this. And I went pretty deep this time. Jordan's not as blown away because I told her about this like 5 days ago.
Oh, come on. Oh,
I've
that's why.
had
I'm
time
just
to.
waiting for her to respond.
No, it's crazy. It's like, I think that the hat on its own is pretty crazy, and hats can be very magical. There's a lot of magical hats. Even in just the, caricature sense, we associate hats with magicians. But
Yeah, I want to look into. It's good that you bring that up.
you'll get more into hats soon.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is, and I want to revisit, is that JFK was one of the last presidents to wear a top hat at his inauguration. And given what I've learned about Oleg Cassini and his intentional mirroring of Jackie's clothes with ancient Egyptian goddesses and princesses, it makes me wonder if that top hat that JFK wore, and that it's never been worn at an inauguration since. So that feels very significant to me.
Yeah.
I don't know
Always
I
associate
wonder.
Lincoln with a top hat. Like he,
That's right.
to come to
That's
my
For
right.
mind.
sure.
A stovetop hat, yeah. So that might be it, or maybe we can find that there's some sort of Osiris connection to the top hat. Like, I don't know where the top hat comes from. I think about
I don't
top hats.
know.
I think magicians too. So there's that.
Same. I don't know where that idea comes from. I know recently we talked about Joseph Smith, pulling stones out of the hat.
Yeah.
There's another iteration of that fractal. I'm not sure where it comes from personally. That's something I'm intrigued to dig into.
Yeah. I think at some point there was like some 19th century magician that brought the top hat into connected to magic. I think his name was Apollinaire or something like that. I remember looking this up like 10 years ago. And so maybe that'll be a fruitful area of research in the future. We have a little bit more about this rice thing in JFK if you want to progress to the next slide. Something I do want to say is that the ordering of the rice events is potentially interesting too. Like we have the event in LA, and then we have the divorcing. There's like marriage themes with it. Like when he speaks at the Rice Hotel, he's like getting divorced from the Catholic Church. And then there's like this proposal that's put together at Rice University for the moon speech. And then the Rice interacts again the night before his death. And then it gets, obviously then the dream of Apollo is transformed into the project that we know today. So there does seem to be like kind of a movement there. Like like we're separating and then we're reunifying. There's some sort of narrative there that I've yet to kind of figure out. But here's an image of JFK with I believe this was the Rice Festival Queen. Her name was Judith Ann Hadel. And you can see she too has the rice stalks protruding from her head, which that's look at Kircher's depiction of Isis. Look at this rice queen. This looks pretty similar to me. I think, Jordan, did I have you reading something for this? I think I do.
Yes, yeah.
Would you mind?
Sure. In Asian folklore, a selfless rabbit was rewarded with eternal life on the moon, where it is often seen standing over a mortar and pestle pounding rice to create the traditional cakes that represents the full moon's glow. However, the Chinese version differs by shifting from food to magic. There, the jade rabbit is the companion of the goddess Chang'e, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that,
That's fine.
and spends its time pounding the elixir of immortality. Rather than preparing a snack, the Chinese rabbit acts as a celestial chemist, forever grinding a divine medicine that grants eternal life.
Yeah, so this was really fascinating to me that there are, I don't know why I didn't anticipate this. We've talked about the Chinese moon rabbit and the bunny girl and the elixir of life and immortality that's there. But the Korean version is that he's making a rice cake. And that got me wondering whether or not like rice cakes could somehow be associated with the moon. And in fact, in Korean lore, this songpyeon, these are the half moon rice cakes, is what the rabbit was making up there. And they make them in a half moon fashion as a symbol of this story. Now, from what I can tell, the rice cakes that we have in America that look very lunar have supposedly have nothing to do with the moon, that this is purely uh, industrial efficiency. But that doesn't really matter too much to me. I could also see it where it's like, that this is the Unus Mundus presenting itself as a symbol, waiting for us to discover it. I mean, if the Korean rice cakes are symbols of the moon, I don't see why unintentionally our American ones could be symbols of the moon. But it is interesting thinking about the rice connection to the moon. There's much more, but I thought that was intriguing.
Yeah, rice is white, the cakes are white, so
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to make that connection. I like this image. Like, where did you get it?
Which
It's
one?
almost
With the Kircher one?
the woman who's been crowned.
Just I think I got it out of an old newspaper or Internet Archive or something. You know what? I might have even, a lot of great photos are on the JFK Library site. So this there is a little bit of a credit down here. It says the Reggie Family Archives in the bottom left hand corner. So that might be a clue. I don't have it ready. I don't have it readily available. I should, but that might be one clue to go
The
chase
Red
this.
family. Okay.
Mhm.
Also, just I think this is the most concrete thing. Like very solid. Like I can punch it and it will withstand it. That's the
Mm.
it's a good
Good.
solid one. This one. So it's like
Good.
the
Good.
crowning achievement. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thanks, my man. These are it's all work in progress. Something that is weak becomes stronger. Like I think I really do think the case for the alchemical marriage that we talked about at the moon speech is much stronger as a result of this research.
They have to be kind of conscious about it. So I was very skeptical, like not too skeptical, but yeah, now I'm like 70% convinced that they knew what was happening and what they were intending to do with it. 70 to 75%.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's go to the next one, Jordan. Okay. So something that Jordan mentioned in, I think, her second to last reading is how the Greeks and the Romans would associate Isis with Ceres and Demeter. And that's going to be a whole conversation that we have when we get deeper into the Golden Bough. And here's a passage from the Abridged Golden Bough, which alludes to this. A further detail is added by Augustine. He says that Isis made the discovery of barley at the moment when she was sacrificing to the common ancestors of her husband and herself, all of whom had been kings, and that she showed the newly discovered ears of barley to Osiris and his counselor, Thoth, or Mercury, as Roman writers called him. That is why, adds Augustine, they identify Isis with Ceres. It's complicated, right? Because we've also talked about Isis being associated with Artemis and Diana. But I guess this shouldn't bother us because we're told at the outset in Frazer, and really in all the other sources, that Isis is a figure of 1,000 names, which we're going to get into in a minute. So if she has an aspect that accords with Ceres and Demeter, and she has an aspect that accords with the moon, that's fine. We have another rice image that I was holding back here. This is, but it kind of checks two boxes. This is with Caroline Kennedy and Jackie. This is a pretty famous photo of the two of them, but you can see it's almost like product placement. She's got a little cereal box of post rice Krispies or whatever they're called, flakes or something like that. And this is a beautiful photo. It also seems to almost channel the whole Madonna and Child thing, the Isis and Horus imagery, which we'll look at deeper. But this is a fantastic photograph. What I'm more interested in is the Ceres connection, because Ceres is connected to cereal. Okay. And so here with this image of holding Caroline, we see not only the rice connection, but also the cereal connection. It got me thinking about this episode of The Simpsons, the first appearance we ever see this. It's like kind of a running gag from Bart the Murderer, is that they had this cereal called Jackie O's. And maybe this is consequential, maybe it's not, but I started to think bigger about it. One of the main targets that RFK Jr. has in his Make America Healthy Again program is getting the glyphosate, the artificial food dyes, things like that out of the cereal. And I don't have this fully developed. We're just talking here. We're just talking. This is happening multidimensionally. I'm trying to figure out how to put this all together. When we think about the king kill ritual, we have an infirmed king who is deposed violently, and then his successor takes the role, and the essence of the land is transferred from one figurehead to the other. And this is not necessarily a sad thing. These are the cycles of life that pagan primitive people practiced in order to restore the land. And that maps onto JFK pretty well. But when I think about the individual that supposedly deposed JFK, we're all told it's Lee Harvey Oswald. What was Lee Harvey Oswald's rule like? Oh, it basically didn't happen at all, right? So there's a breakdown here. But that could be part of this story, right? The fact of the matter is that the cycle is broken. And this got me thinking about the podcast that I did with Bays Lit on the Wasteland. Everything is lying in ruin because the rites haven't been properly carried out, right? The fertility rituals haven't properly been carried out. We forgot them. We have transcended them. And I'm wondering if the king kill ritual that so many people think is going on with the whole JFK story is broken. It actually hasn't been properly carried out on the terrestrial Earth level. Now, there's the other level about it, the kinetic obelisks and the moon potentially being the underworld. Where has Osiris gone? Right? We explored that last week. We can keep talking about it. But wouldn't it make sense if the whole point of deposing the previous king was to revitalize the crops? Wouldn't it make sense if we have a broken king kill cycle that our crops are contaminated? I mean, Jordan can speak about this forever. I'm sure she can, right? Like, okay, so JFK is killed. The successor is not exactly obvious, right? We can talk about all of this. And then our food supply is contaminated, especially the crops. So that makes me think this whole Make America Healthy Again thing is about something much deeper than I previously understood. Do you guys get what I'm putting down here? Do you see what I'm trying to
Yeah,
articulate? I'm very tired.
I've been thinking about this a lot. Yeah.
About this time, like all the genetic engineering of crops is happening. I was even thinking about it in terms of like Vietnam, where we're using like Agent Orange and things like that to like destroy forests and things.
Yeah.
Like that's I'm wondering if that's part of this story of the broken king kill cycle.
I hadn't paired it with the broken king kill. I hadn't thought about who's the successor and where is the successor. Obviously, we have JFK Jr., who passes in the late 90s, and you have continued to see this acceleration of the poisoning of American food. And in particular, like the textbook example is Cheerios.
Yeah.
That is very well known to be typically, if you just randomly select things from a grocery store, to test for some of the highest levels of glyphosate. And yeah, I've always thought about this. I think I was perceiving it as sort of a magical ritual in kind of a nefarious way. Like if we poison the grain and we poison the people, like it's easier to control them. And I have thought about it with ISIS, but I hadn't thought of it as just maybe a natural consequence. And I don't even know if that's the best way of putting it, of not completing the king kill cycle properly. And then we could get into, did he die?
Well, yeah,
That's a whole different thing.
yeah,
But throughout
that's a whole thing.
the Golden Bough, you have examples of these mock rituals. So it's not, I don't think it's necessarily a unique situation to play with the idea that it didn't actually happen. It was more a theatrical performance of it. Like that happens throughout the Golden Bough, throughout cultures. And even the Isis and Osiris coming on the scene are really credited with ending human sacrifice and bringing us into a new era where that is no
That's right.
longer
That's right. That's right.
necessary. So I that feels like an element here as well. I've been thinking about that a lot, also in relation to Christ, within the Western context that we've been exploring here a lot. That's a motif there as well, right? Christ, that as people believe, kind of ends this cycle of sacrificing animals, sacrificing flesh and life for the renewal of humanity. Isis and Osiris are similar. But then that's also in the mix with all of these stories of, like, all the Jeffrey stuff, all of that's
Yeah,
coming
well,
out
that's
into the public consciousness right now, and it's very layered and multidimensional, and there's layers of it that are definitely
well,
metaphysical.
that's
There's layers of it
just
that are real. There's layers of it that are just psyops. It's like, but nonetheless, it is at the
the
top of
story is in our
everybody's.
yeah, the story's in our mind. I think you raise a very interesting point. It's like if we have a broken cycle and we also simultaneously have these stories about human sacrifice going on, like in 2026, like these things seem to be connected, especially since you bring up that point that Osiris put an end to that by teaching the people how to do agriculture.
Right.
So not
They
only,
the
no,
cannibalism specifically, and that is
yeah,
unfortunately a big focal point in at least the conspiracy layer of American thought.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
None
Well,
of
I
these
get
are really
Ossick to like,
conclusive.
yeah,
I've forever, the entire time we've been doing this research, it's very fascinating to me, the glyphosate.
yeah.
It is so terrible, and it really disturbs people's ability to function, and have psychic insights.
Ossick, what do you think?
I don't want to comment on the literal aspects of the king, like not being dead or like stopping something, but I think that's a compelling line of inquiry. Just that on its own, that they might be trying to do something, but it failed, or like it's like because even with events like 9/11, like you talk about, it was like a timeline reset. So it was a way of a king kill in that sense. It's like there's something going on, but the transition has not been proper, and that has caused a lot of problem. And I think when so much confusion and fear, they start to rule the consciousness, people start to trojan horse other forces within that thing. Because I keep thinking about, people talk about like wars and everything, and they say that okay, it's legal or not legal, whatever, but all these wars, they are kind of cloaking devices for forces that were waiting to unleash. They were waiting to, like, some transaction was waiting to happen to that particular he was waiting to sell his maybe tank to other person. So wars and things, these are like points of confusion. They hide things, and I think it's like a lot of movies have shown how people create riots, and between there are secret agents working and they are coordinating things. I'm just going further. It's all an aside, but like, yeah, I think that's an interesting inquiry. I was also thinking about Macbeth when you were talking about this. That I thought like, okay, it's a not proper
Yes.
translation. Could it be like, it's like, I remember that line from Macduff when he comes to confront Macbeth. He says, I'm not a woman born. I was from my mother's womb, untimely ripped." So it's like a premature birth, but like not proper. And since you keep talking about JFK Jr., he's like, I'm gonna avenge you, Dad, and things like that. So it's a collection of different things. I think maybe the people who were responsible for getting JFK out of the way, they were like paranoid about JFK Jr., and because they got RFK too, like his father, like RFK Jr.'s fathers too. Someone got to him. It's like the whole family. They might be onto something. Is what I'm saying, because whatever was happening under their tutelage was pretty unique, because and I think they were very conscious of it, and someone knew that these guys are conscious of it and they're talking about going to the moon and things like that. It's like, I think people wanted to get them out of their way. I'm not sure what I'm saying. It's just a
No,
feeling.
no. We're just talking. We're just talking. You mentioned the curse aspect, something that I have not really had a chance to develop here, is that the curse could be properly seen as like, you know, as evidence of this responsibility of being part of this line of deposing kings. Like that's kind of like a darker interpretation of the responsibility. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is we talk about the Kennedy, the problematic demises of all the Kennedy figures as a curse, but perhaps that's just the darker side of what is a responsibility. Not to mention, and I haven't really developed this as well. The idea, I think there's people would be, if you were just like do like a man on the street thing and be like, who has a, if America ever had a queen, who would the queen be? And I think people might pause for a second, and I think they go, "Oh, Jackie O." I think people would say eventually, maybe you would find a plurality of views. Maybe people would have said Michelle Obama, or maybe someone would say Melania, which is a whole other issue because she very much leans into the Jackie O imagery. But I think in general, if we did like a Family Feud type of poll, I think Jackie would win. And then does that necessarily imply that JFK is a king if she is the queen of America? It's something that I feel like needs to be developed. But she's treated with an obsession that's like Princess Diana, that's like the Queen Mother. She's kind of in that icon category that other first ladies never got to.
The JFK era, even outside of America, I think people associate it with like the good America. Like,
Yeah.
not otherwise. People otherwise know about what they do, but like that, it's like an idealism, that particular period. And I think people, yeah, maybe his untimely death or assassination is like contributing to it, but I think he was pretty unique in all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. The premature ending of it allows us to preserve this idealized fantasy, even of America and the Kennedy America. You didn't see it come through its full maturity all the way through winter and the kind of natural decay cycle that so many other administrations go through. You didn't have the opportunity for the fruit to sour, so it's
Yeah.
almost like freezing it in time, and magically that's super powerful. Not to mention all of the Arthurian Camelot language that they very
Yeah.
heavily pushed.
Yeah. Yeah. But Jackie was the main pusher of it. She's the one who came up with it, right? What, like a week or two after the assassination. So,
Yeah.
and had the guy named T.H. White write the article for the magazine. So, who shares the name with the guy who wrote The Once and Future King that Camelot is based off of.
Yeah, which is on the next slide or in a few.
Yeah. No. All right. What do we got next?
Just one thing.
Oh,
I
sure.
wanted to ask your opinion on, like, you once discussed that JFK was obsessed with a book called The King Must Die, right? So I
Mm.
was thinking,
Yeah.
like even like if a person is so embedded in all these mythologies, like, would he want to die young or like untimely or not know that he's gone? So, like, one time he presented an interpretation that he knows what's going to happen. It's like he has foreknowledge of that, and he's like playing a part in all that. But I keep thinking, like, a person who's obsessed with all these things, like stories and like cycles, like he would be the last one to want it to end, like midway, whatever the cost may be, whatever the price that he may get in the afterlife. Or it's just, I was thinking about that, like, him as a person, it's like a very hypothetical thing, just that it feels very unnatural for him, even like especially him. Like, it's not like an unaware individual who's dying. It's like he's an aware guy. He knows how the cycles work, how the mythologies work. So it feels different to me in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it really gets into this question, but what does it mean to know, right? There are things that we know on an intuitive level, but we can't really admit to a higher level of consciousness, right? It doesn't reveal itself to a rational way. So he may have been gravitating towards all these different sources of literature that talk about um, kings who get sick and die, or he may have a sort of a lust for death without even really understanding why he does. I mean, there's lots of things in my life that I have um, a proclivity for it that I don't understand. It hasn't risen to the level of ego consciousness. So that's, and there's going to be limits to how far we can go with this because we don't know. We don't have access to them to interrogate and get them to confess, when they had this revelation about who they were, if they ever did. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to be like, you have the whole conversation about who you would have at a dinner table. I'd be like, how much did I get right, guys?
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, we need to keep going if that's okay. We're an hour into this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a quick one.
Hmm.
We've talked about this already, how Isis has a myriad of names. She's Ceres, she's Demeter, she's Artemis, she's Diana. I got to thinking about it. I was like, oh, Jackie has a million names. She has 1,000 names. She's Jacqueline Lee Bouvier. She's Jackie. She's debutante of the year. She's Jacqueline Kennedy. Her secret code name is Lace. She's Christina Onassis, had all sorts of names for her because she didn't like her. She called her the Black Widow. She called her the Witch, all this other stuff. Aristotle Onassis called her the super tanker, apparently as the result of her spending habits or something like that. But she was also Jackie Onassis. It's not 1,000 names, but this woman has a lot of names. She has a lot of names. Some of them we don't really associate with her. They're ones that are just between individuals like her and Christina. But other ones, I would say there's probably like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of these that if you said them, somebody would know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't have this many names, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Osik, do you have a name besides what we call you?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are they?
Just Vishu.
Vishu?
Yeah.
What's that mean? Who calls you that?
Just a shortening of Vishnu and things like, it's just what my mother calls me.
Uh,
Yeah.
So you have one other name. Do you have like 5 names? Do you have 6 names?
Oh, not yet.
No. But yeah, maybe in time when you become famous, when this podcast launches you to celebrity. All right. What do we have next, Jordan? Okay, this was one of the more fascinating things. I'm going to have Jordan read this quote. And let me be
Mhm.
clear, I'm talking about Oleg Cassini now. Okay. I
I
didn't really
think
know
you
who
said at the
Oleg.
beginning, my brain just over-indexed on Ole, and stupid.
Okay. So Oleg Cassini was a very close friend, very dear friend. He seems like a very interesting guy. And you can tell here Jackie is dancing with him, and you can tell they have deep affection for one another. I've really enjoyed getting to know these individuals and looking at their more intimate moments and seeing the humanity versus whatever the press photos that are circulated. So, yeah, this is West Palm Beach in 1954. He was a fashion designer, and he was largely responsible for all the different looks that we associate with the fashionista that is Jackie O. He was also instrumental in crafting the fashion imagery of Marilyn Monroe. So that's kind of awkward. Okay. Marilyn Monroe and also Grace Kelly, who um, there's some speculation that maybe Grace and JFK had some sort of short-lived affair before Jackie ever came on the scene. I think she's known JFK longer, or she knew JFK longer than Jackie did. And, there's that picture that goes around the internet where Princess Grace is like giving this like sexual energy to JFK. Who knows? There's a lot of debate about it. But the point is here is that Oleg, because he was very familiar with the frame of Jackie, her neck, her shoulders, everything, he thought she was a great candidate to channel Egyptian imagery. Specifically, he modeled a lot of her clothing off of Princess Nefertiti here. Is that how you say her name, Nefertiti? And of course, Princess Nefertiti was kind of the earthly avatar of Isis. You can see here in the far right corner, Isis leading Nefertiti to the afterlife. Okay. So they're very closely linked. You could talk about this energy, this archetypal energy descending upon Princess Nefertiti. And then by some sort of law of transformation, we see it descending upon Jackie. Specifically, the headgear of Princess Nefertiti is connected to these pillbox hats. These apparently Oleg got the idea to make these pillbox hats for Jackie from Princess Nefertiti, and we deeply associate that with that day in Dallas in November 22nd, 1963. So it's been like kind of in front of our face this entire time. But like the pillbox hat is a clear homage to Egyptian mythology. And I feel like this is a very strong confirmation of the Egyptian passion play that we see unfolding in Dallas. Jordan, if would you read that quote from Cassini on the title on the card here?
The one on the right.
Yeah, Cassini noted
Yeah.
in A Thousand Days of Magic.
Dressing Jacqueline Kennedy for the White House. Oh, Cassini noted in A Thousand Days of Magic, dressing Jacqueline Kennedy for the White House. Jackie reminded me of an ancient Egyptian princess, very geometric, even hieroglyphic, with the sphinx like quality of her eyes, her long neck, slim torso, broad shoulders, narrow hips, and regal carriage. I wanted to dress her cleanly, architecturally, in style. I would use the most sumptuous fabrics and the purest interpretations. I was proposing a new look, a new concept, my interpretation of how Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy should appear in her role as First Lady. I told her that she needed a story, a scenario as First Lady.
I mean, this is crazy, right? Like, so we all know Jackie's looks, but essentially we're looking at an Egyptian princess. I I feel like this is really strong. I mean, think about how much she is celebrated for that. And she clearly had to know what was going on. And she probably even provided a lot of feedback and insights to Oleg about what she wanted to do. Who knows? Like the pillbox hat, she may have been a collaborative effort. I need to read this book, A Thousand Days of Magic by Oleg, to really kind of understand what her input was. But she had very discriminating, discerning taste. She probably had a lot of input into all this. And going back to her love of Anthony and Cleopatra, the all the other mythology that she would have encountered at the Sorbonne or earlier in her life. I imagine she had a lot of say in all of this.
And the word is right there, 1,000 Days of Magic. Is she it seems on some level they are aware of the magic that they are doing. The Golden Bough talks a lot. At the very beginning, we get into sympathetic magic and um, there's different ways this could manifest, but she's creating the physical vessel of the Egyptian princess so that that archetype can flow through her and be
Mhm.
expressed physically through her. I mean, some people would call that possession, some people would call that channeling, some people may just call that imitation, but it seems like they're telling us right here they knew exactly what they were doing.
I think they did. I think they did.
There may be competing metaphysics about how it functionally operates, but
I feel like this was one of the bigger revelations from this research dig. The rice stuff and this. There are many more that we're going to go through, but I feel like this is the second big whoa. I've been looking at this pillbox hat for my entire life, and oh, it's an Egyptian headdress, just in different form. This changes everything.
the fashion is so important
It really
throughout
is.
history, throughout our culture, throughout all the movies. It is not accidental. And I think it really having the framing of fashion as magical ritual, I think is very powerful.
I think Ostic likes this one. What do you think?
Yeah, it's amazing, and I wish I had more things to add. I'll add more things. Now this is great. I just
Yeah,
like it.
I thought it was good too.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think I
you
got
talked
onto
about
this too
headdresses.
via.
Just
Yeah,
like random trivia. Like in Full Metal Jacket, people have very unique headdresses in
they do.
themselves. They have even written things written on them. So just that to emphasize the fact that Jordan said that all these fashion choices, like these things might not be fashion, what soldiers wear, but they're pretty important and symbolic, and they carry a lot of history and meaning. They're very loaded. So yeah, that was interesting.
And Luke, you've been calling these books about Jackie O kind of fluff. It's a
They're
lot of
not.
imageries, but they are not. They are deeply encoded. I think a lot of feminine magic gets sort of minimized in this way. We call those arts fluff. We call them um some people, no, I'm not saying anyone here, but some people would say it's very shallow to care so much about the hat and the all the little details, but what we're seeing is very, very high magic.
Well, I just find it interesting that I spent decades of my life like reading like rigorous science and philosophy, and now at 46 I'm like reading these very light, ebullient biographies of First Lady. It feels like a real mismatch, but like you're saying, like a lot of really interesting details bleed through. I find this, I find a revelation like this that only I could have gotten through a profile of Jackie Kennedy to be more revelatory than reading Hegel. Like what's going on here? I love this image too. This image of Isis leading Nefertiti into the afterlife. Like that, I I feel like if I were to write a book about just Jackie and the Egypt connections, which somebody should, I don't think it's me, but somebody should. That's got to be part of the cover. Them clasping hands, you know.
Yeah.
I think feel like that captures what we're talking about here, as far as an energy inhabiting a person, a walk-in or something.
You mentioned like this was more revelatory than Hegel, but it's like you already have the framework. Like okay, I thought I was muted. I thought
No,
okay.
you're good.
So it's like philosophy. It's form. It's like building a house and
No.
scaffolding and everything, and like with content now flooding in, it's sticking to the walls. It's like uh, it's it's like that Red River. in the
Yeah,
Hotel of the Shining. It's like painting your walls. It's different colors. It's like a rainbow flood. so it's so yeah. I think
puts the
people
meat
who
on
have
the
very
bones,
developed.
doesn't it? Well, all right. Well, we could say a lot more about this. I mean, let's just keep going here. Are you guys cool to go a little bit longer? Do we need a break? Are we good?
In the next like 10, 20, I'd appreciate
All
a
right, let's take a
break.
break in 10 minutes. Let's take a break in 10 minutes. Let's do like two more.
Okay.
Okay. This is let's talk about Joseph Campbell. And
Yeah, would you like me to kick it off and read this?
do I have you reading? I forget what I have you reading. Do I have you reading something else?
No, I think it's
I
uh it is vague. There's notes highlighted and there's stuff on the screen.
Why don't you read the highlighted first,
You
and then
got
we'll
it.
pause, and then I'll have you read the thing that's on the card.
All right. Through Joseph Campbell's teachings, Jackie Kennedy likely saw herself as the Isis to JFK's Osiris, acting as the divine restorer who gathered the fragments of his shattered presidency to rebuild them into the eternal legend of Camelot. This mythic commitment was physically mirrored in her work on the power of myth, where she rejected standard covers to clothe the book in a dragon from her own vintage silk robe, symbolizing the universal energy of the hero's journey. By meticulously curating these works, she ensured that her husband was resurrected not just as a fallen leader, but as a timeless archetype whose kingdom would remain whole in the public imagination.
Yeah. So what Jordan is referencing there is we've talked about how Jackie was very involved. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory. She saw the because the Power of Myth started out as a television series. I think it was on PBS, and I think it aired in 87 or 88, and it was like a 6 or a 7-part series. You can find this on YouTube. It's very enlightening. I highly recommend everybody check it out. And I need to revisit it now that I'm deeper into this project. And the myth of who Isis is and a variety of other mythological figures are talked about at length there. Jackie saw this and she was like, "Oh, we have to make this a book." We and so she very quickly was able to transcribe and with the help of Bill Moyers, there's a lot of a story about how this book came together so quickly that I'm not versed in. But one of the characteristics that I do know about it is what Jordan referenced about the cover. They did not have a cover for the book at the time of its publication. Jackie's like, I need a cover. I need a cover. And she's just like looking around her New York apartment and she sees a robe that has this Chinese dragon on it. That is Jackie's Chinese dragon on the cover of Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. So I think we could wax poetically about this. I could not find an image of Jackie wearing that robe. I think it was probably a little too intimate for a press photo or something like that. But it was in her wardrobe. It was in her closet. And to kind of double down on it, she was so enamored with Joseph Campbell that she did a second book, which I had not had a chance to dig into. But this is the biography of Fire in the Mind. I've covered up Campbell's face. He has these very piercing green or blue eyes that one should see. But I was able to go through the intro for it, and this is the intro from Power of Myth, actually, and I think it is revelatory too. And I think we have to ask ourselves, who is Bill Moyers? Because in my study of things, it's like, wait, Bill Moyers is coming up in contact with JFK and LBJ, but also Joseph Campbell. So we're going to get to that in a minute. So Jordan, could you read that quote from the intro of The Power of Myth by Bill Moyers?
Sure. Campbell died just before the 24th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination, a tragedy he had discussed in mythological terms during our first meeting years prior. Now, as that melancholy remembrance came around again, I sat talking with my grown children about Campbell's reflections. The solemn state funeral he had described as an illustration of the high service to ritual to a society, evoking mythological themes rooted in human need. This was a ritualized occasion of the greatest social necessity, Campbell had written. The public murder of a president representing our whole society, the living social organism of which ourselves were the members, taken away at a moment of exuberant life, required a compensatory right to reestablish the sense of solidarity. Here was an enormous nation, made those 4 days into a unanimous community, all of us participating in the same way simultaneously in a single symbolic event. He said it was the first and only thing of its kind in peacetime that has ever given me the sense of being a member of this whole national community, engaged as a unit in the observance of a deeply significant rite.
Okay. So Jackie is putting this book out, and Campbell is saying that it was a symbolic rite, the JFK funeral and assassination. Bill Moyers is saying that. And Jackie, clearly, this idea is resonating with her. And she's like, yeah, put that in there. That's going to be the first thing that people read when they read this book. So some people might be saying that what we are doing here is like insensitive, that we're not being respectful enough of the family. I'm very sensitive to that. But when you take this into consideration, they're saying the same thing that I'm saying. Okay. They're saying that it was mythological. They're saying it was a collective right. And this has been endorsed in some way. Is Jackie quoted as saying that? I think her actions are indicating that she agrees with that interpretation. Now, would Joseph Campbell, would Bill Moyers, would Jackie agree with what we do here? I don't know. I think they would find it interesting. I think they would find it very interesting, but I don't think it runs counter to what they were doing. So if we can progress to the next slide, and we'll take a break after this. Who was Bill Moyers? I only know Bill Moyers through PBS, C-SPAN, this Joseph Campbell stuff. Bill Moyers, I don't know his exact title. He was a liaison between JFK and LBJ. I think he had some fancy title. He was very involved in the LBJ administration as well. Bill Moyers is not just some guy with a show on PBS. Bill Moyers' political life, he was on the front lines of his political life long before he ever got involved in public intellectualism. How on the front lines was he? Oh, he was just on board Air Force One when LBJ was sworn in immediately after the assassination of JFK, right? While Jackie is wearing the bloodstained Chanel dress, okay? In this photo here, you can see him in the back with the glasses. That's a young Bill Moyers that I was able to positively identify. So this is not someone who's like an armchair politico or intellectual who's like not accustomed. He was essentially part of it, saying that it was a mythological ritual. Now, I don't think he means it was intentionally so, but he picked up on it, especially after reading Campbell and having years to meditate upon it. This, if you watch the footage of this, is absolutely crazy. There's a whole story. Like this guy over Lady Bird's head, like winks and smiles at LBJ as he's being sworn in. It's a whole thing. And like Lady Bird, I don't know. Anyway, but that's Bill Moyers in the background there. Pretty cool, huh? Like this is just like Where's Waldo all the time. So
Yeah.
Ostic, what do you think?
This is like finding a hidden character in the Sgt. Pepper album. On that
It is.
cover.
Yes.
Also,
It is.
Is this lighting common? Like the top lighting with all these very panels. Is it common in America?
This is Air Force One.
Oh, okay.
In 1963. So I imagine whatever setup they have on Air Force One is different from whatever we would experience flying commercially. I don't recall ever seeing lighting like this on an airplane. Jordan may. I've never
Looks
seen
very
it.
Kubrickian, the lighting.
It's very Strange Lovian, isn't it?
Yeah, Strange
The
Lovian,
whole
Kubrickian.
scene.
Yeah. What?
No, I mean, not to mention that there are some eerie synchronicities in Strange Love, right? You know this. This is
Yeah.
not that right with the whole scene at the end about the pie fight. It has to be edited out because our youthful leader is cut down in his prime, and they change Vegas or Dallas to Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, this is good. I don't have any problem. I think Jordan could speak more on this.
Oh, I don't know that I have much to add, but it is a really fascinating photo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell that because Bill is there on Air Force One, that he was. I mean, clearly this partnership between Joseph Campbell, Bill Moyers, and Jackie like didn't come out of the clear blue.
No.
Like Bill has known Jackie forever.
Yes. Yeah. I do appreciate that you're really bringing up the point that this didn't start after, and there is an intentionality to create a myth around this for the collective, really, by Jackie
Mhm.
herself. And of course, she has lots of professional support in that mission.
Yeah.
But it's not really like Luke shadow projecting onto this, that we're lifting quotes from these very
Yeah.
people.
I would say if someone said I was crazy, it's like just read the intro to the book, This Power of Myth, right? That
The more
Jackie
I
put
learn
out.
about everything, it's just read what people wrote about themselves, and they really tell you. You don't
They do tell you.
it I think a lot of skepticism today is a lack of literacy, candidly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you guys want to take a break and
That
we'll
would be
pick it back up?
wonderful, thank you, yeah. I'll
All right.
see you in a little bit.
Osiris, and they're called the Tears of Isis. Apparently, she shed these during her period of mourning. What's interesting about this is that Jackie has a lot of connections to emeralds, both the wedding band and the anniversary band, or maybe it's the engagement band. I should double check this to be sure. That Jack gave to her had emeralds embedded in them. So I just found that that was intriguing. There's a whole story about how she would later. I think it was maybe with the anniversary band. She carved them up and gave them to her children in different settings and whatnot. But yes, her emeralds were very visible with Jackie, given that they're associated with her marriage to the Osiris figure, which we've talked about it being JFK, but also to the anniversary gift that he gave her. Something that I just wanted to point out briefly, looking at all the individuals that Jackie has been associated with romantically is intriguing. We've the Osiris elements with JFK, the Greco elements with Aristotle, and everything that that brings with it. But also later in life, her last companion, because Aristotle, I believe they divorced and then he passed away shortly thereafter. But I have to check to be certain. Later in life, she was with a gentleman named Maurice Templesman. I think he passed away actually relatively recently, given that Jackie passed away in 1994 from cancer. But Maurice Templesman, I think he was like a diamond dealer, which is interesting and it needs to be explored at some point. But given all the Isis temples that we've explored and their connections to Jackie, I find it so interesting that she ended up with a man who is literally a man of the temple. So this gets into the onomancy that we've discussed in previous episodes. Is any of this, you know, perfect proof? I find it just another set of data points. So that's we don't have to talk about this extensively, but I do find it the emerald connection to Jackie. At least I find that to be intriguing.
The contrast is pretty stark. Like she began with baby blue colors, like baby pink, and like very pastel colors, and like towards the end of her life she's like in jet black, and it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
pretty stark difference in aesthetics. And like it's not that she
Well, I
was
think that
a young girl,
I
she
think that
was like a
contributes.
woman, a mother
Oh,
of,
sorry.
she was just, I'm just saying that she was like well formed person by the time she had that aesthetic of that pink and everything. So yeah, that's, it's like a deliberate transformation. It's not that she's going through puberty and everything. She's like deliberately making a aesthetic choice later in life after all that's happened to her.
Right. I think the aligning herself with the black is, you know, stereotypical or of the performative role of Isis. Right. She's in mourning. She's a representative of the Republic that's in mourning.
Man, it just makes me want, like, what are we mourning?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bigger question than I don't know, than maybe what's obvious.
Yeah.
I'll meditate on that.
All right. I think we can go to the next one. Ostic, I'm sorry I interrupted you there. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. Sorry. This was probably the third most jaw-dropping thing that I prepared for today. This blew my absolute mind. Okay. So I think, Jordan, do I have you reading something about this, or did we talk about this earlier? I can't remember if I have you reading something.
Yes,
I do have you. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and read that for us, and then I'll riff on it.
absolutely. In her original form, Isis was a rustic corn mother worshipped by Egyptian farmers with simple rural rites tied to the grain cycle. Over centuries, she evolved into a refined, saintly figure, the devoted wife, tender mother, and beneficent queen of nature, surrounded by moral purity and mysterious sanctity. Her dignified cult, with its processions, music, holy water, and images of the Divine Mother, became highly popular across the Roman Empire, appealing especially to women and offering comfort and hope of immortality. Many of its elements, shaven priests, daily services, and solemn ritual, closely resemble later Catholic ceremonies, suggesting Egyptian influence on both the church's pageantry and theology. The image of Isis nursing Horus prefigures the Madonna and child, and her later role as patroness of sailors may lie behind the Virgin's title, Stella Marie, originally linked to the star Sirius rising over the sea.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to look at these nursing icons that are associated with both Isis and the Mother of God. And clearly, you can see the connections between the imagery. I think even before studying any of this as a child, just like seeing things on like Nat Geo specials, I'd be like, wow, that's certainly in my mind. I was like, that looks all like a lot of things I see in church, right? Where Isis with Horus seems to be paralleling, anticipating Mary and Jesus, and that's why I included this image of Jackie with a newborn JFK Jr. here in the bottom hand left corner. Something that I did not anticipate. I set out really just to do what's on the left side of this slide. But as I was Googling, I was like Madonna and child, Jackie, just kind of looking around. And this, what I'm going to talk about on the right, which is absolutely an atomic blast of mine, came up. So apparently, JFK Jr. was pretty good friends at one point with Madonna. And there was a story about them potentially dating on some level, but it's controversial whether or not that actually happened. They were rumored to be dating at some point. And the story goes is that Jackie hated Madonna. Okay. And it's pretty, you can read between the lines. Why would she hate Madonna? Is it what's going on here? Why was JFK Jr. drawn to Madonna? Well, Madonna very much borrowed the imagery of Marilyn Monroe. You can see that here with the Material Girl video and Marilyn Monroe, right? That's clearly what this is a reference. I believe this is when she did a Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend or something like that, or I forget what the song was that Marilyn was singing here. And she, if we are to believe these rumors about some sort of affair between JFK and Marilyn, and she saw Madonna as a reiteration of Marilyn Monroe, who was then going to get involved with her son, who was like the living scion of his dead father, you can see why she would hate this woman, right? So in the story gets apparently like she was performing in like off-Broadway plays and Broadway plays, and JFK Jr. and her would go to these plays, and Jackie would like dress up in disguises. There's a story about how Jackie wore like a red wig to go see Madonna perform something because she didn't want attention brought to herself, but she probably just looked like Jackie O in a big red wig. What's crazier is after his mother died, when JFK Jr. was doing George magazine, and he had this contact with Madonna, he's like, oh, wouldn't it be a riot? Wouldn't it be just amazing if we put you on the cover of George magazine dressed as my mother on the day that my father died? And so this image here from the New York Post, where Madonna is dressed up as Jackie O, this is Photoshop. This isn't a real image. Madonna, being the classy woman that she is, said, no, I don't think I could actually live up to that ideal. I'm not going to do that. But you have to think like JFK Jr. is like trying to get his magazine to be successful, right? He's trying to get out from his father's shadow. There's a whole thing about him failing the bar or taking the bar 3 times to become a DA, and becoming president, et cetera, et cetera. But like, think about what had to go through his mind. It's like, wouldn't it be a great idea if I took the 2 most prominent female archetypes that hover around my father and his legacy and combined it into one woman? Not to mention the implications of Madonna being like this inversion of the Sacred Mary figure, right? Like, he thought that was a good idea, and Madonna was like, no, that's too much for me, right? Like, that's a crazy idea. So you have to, it raises an interesting question about what JFK Jr. actually thought about the events of Dallas, and why there seems to be a lack of reverence for them, and how the images can be so easily played with. What does he know that we don't know? Or is like, did he, as a ambitious young guy who's trying to make a name for himself, he got so possessed by like greed and the opportunity to sell magazines that he didn't mind doing something so sacrilegious? And that's a weird thing to say, sacrilegious, because we're borrowing religious iconography from both Christian and Egyptian domains, that he would tarnish his mother's image like this. So you can make whatever conclusions. I think you can read between the lines about what I think happened. This just annihilated my mind. So we don't have to get into the ontology of everything, but clearly JFK Jr. is comfortable with image play. Is this blowing anybody else's mind, or is it just me?
No, it's insane. Like, if I take off my regalia and put on my normie hat in 2026, it's insane that you would ask Madonna to do this. It's gross.
It is gross, isn't it?
So either it's very gross, or he views it very differently. And of course, I'm not saying his mother would approve of this in particular, but of course, we've already gone through, his mother is intentionally curating mythology for the collective, for the masses, for the culture to come together and have a shared experience with imagery that means something and brings people together. So I don't know. It's like, it's hard for me to imagine that he would view all of this as real and then wants to do that. That's very bizarre. And
It seems very disrespectful.
unless it's like entity possession or something like that, but what seems more plausible to me in this particular case is like you said, he sees an opportunity to reinsert an image. I mean, it's weird to me that almost every time she's depicted in media, it's in this pink dress. That's so weird.
Yeah.
She wore so many things. When we see her on The Simpsons, or rather, when Marge dresses up like
Yeah.
her, she's
Marge
dressed up
Bouvier.
in the pink
She,
dress. It's weird.
it is weird. It's super weird.
She has all these iconic outfits, and we just keep recycling the one on the big day.
Would it make it any better if JFK Jr. is like, okay, I don't want you to wear the bloodstained clothes of my mother for the magazine cover, but how about this other pastel dress? Would that, you know, but I guess that would have made it a little better.
I think it's less weird. I think it's less weird to dress up like her, but not purposefully curating imagery of that event. That's not as weird to me.
Ostic, what do you think? I know it's getting late there, man. Is
No,
this?
no, it's not late. I'm just wondering, like, uh, why would he even have a mission to sell magazines? Like, it seems so small in comparison to who he is. I don't know. I can't relate really. I'm like, why
Well,
would you bother to push it so much? It's just
Well, if
it's a,
part of the family trait is creating mythology, that would
yeah,
be a
yeah.
good way to execute
Okay,
that
yeah,
mission.
that makes sense. That makes sense. So if his magazine is successful, and if it enters the cultural zeitgeist, he'll be able to influence these images a bit more easily.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he ever stated anything like that, but
I mean, that's the purpose of magazines, to be influential. That he was like trying
that's
to
true.
create influencers. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, there's this gets into the whole QAnon thing, right? Is that a lot of people who are really into the QAnon stuff go and they buy up these lots of George magazine to try to find Easter eggs and secret codes about what was going on with that, if there were codes embedded in that information that are relevant now. And I think I I I'm curious. I tried to buy a lot of them or a couple of them on eBay this past week. They're so rare that I'm like, I'm not going to spend like $50 or like $100 for a single issue for this magazine. I'm not going to just throw money around like that. I'm already throwing it around on Sirius the Dog Hero books. Like, I can't be just throwing money at anything that my instincts tell me to get. Also, I mean, if of course, he never said it. It's not like he went on Larry King. He's like, by the way, I'm doing like, I'm part of an intelligence operation, and this is just one facet of it. I think, he was a man who was desperately trying to find his own way, you know, growing up in the shadow of an incredibly successful father. And everybody's asking him, when are you going to run for president? When are you going to run for Senate? Da, 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 da. He's like, you know what? Like, I'm more than my dad. And maybe he wanted to do something different. And it was also a different time in America too. Like, it was before 9/11, like there hadn't been like this crazy polarization. There was a time of like record low political party identification. Like, we were kind of like, I remember it vaguely. There was a period in like the late 90s where most people didn't really feel strongly attached to a political party in America. You'd had Democrats vote Republican and Republican vote Democrats depending on the election cycle. And then after 9/11, that all changed. So maybe there was an opportunity there, at least at that particular moment in the zeitgeist, to do something more creative and fun like this.
Yeah. It feels like a. I think it's an important. It must be important to him, that magazine. I'm just thinking, like, if he
It's
was
very important to him.
a much hipper dude, he would have like invested in tech stocks, like tech companies that were coming
He
up,
had all
the
he
early
had all the
internet.
money in the world. He didn't need any more money.
No, no,
You know,
just
like,
be a force behind them, and like then they could be his children. Those tech companies like Yahoo and everything. Like,
well, I'm sure he was well invested in all that. I think I think he thought of a different way to create a legacy. I mean, we are talking about him right now. You know, we just had this love story miniseries that came out. I mean, there are a lot of people that think this guy's still alive. It's not that fringe anymore. So, which gets us into other subjects. So let's progress if we can. What's next?
Madonna,
Oh, I just
another.
Yeah, I just thought this was a great image. You know, I was looking for pictures of Madonna and JFK Jr. I was like, oh, this is great. This is more Where's Waldo? And then I was like, wait, who's that in the bottom right-hand corner? Oh, it's Donald Trump. This is all of them at the Evander Holyfield Mike Tyson fight in 1997 at the MGM Grand. I find it interesting, the whole idea of Holyfield. We're talking about Harvest. We've talked about Trump being a Ra figure, perhaps a Thoth figure. We'll look at that. JFK Jr. being Horus, and of course Madonna being associated with ISIS. So I just thought this was a fascinating little snap. When I first grabbed it, I didn't recognize that Donald Trump was there in the bottom right-hand corner, but this kind of shows the proximity that he had to him. So, little Where's Waldo moment.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say than that. Just
Holyfield, that's interesting.
Just another piece of evidence talking about the proximity of these two and these archetypal figures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much that we could be. I haven't even thought about Madonna until this week. And interestingly enough, I put together these slides and like Madonna's back in the headlines because she performed this like a virgin with Sabrina Carpenter at Coachella. So I'm like, where did that come from? It's like they always trot Madonna back out with some young musical starlet. I remember they did this with Christina and Britney, like the MTV Music Awards, like before in like 2000 or 2001 or something. So interesting timing.
Of course, of course.
What's that?
Val Kilmer is also there in the right.
Where's oh, that is Val Kilmer. I didn't even see him there. That's crazy. That is Val Kilmer. We could talk about this photo forever. Yeah.
I'm telling you, as we get to new levels, it's the imagery.
Well, we're going to get into some imagery that was a controversy in America this past week. Okay. Everybody is losing their collective minds about Trump sharing this image of him as people say, oh, this is the Antichrist. He's sharing this image of him as Jesus, and it's digitally altered. The source photo that was used for this had like military servicemen in the clouds, and there looks to be like some demonic entity with a crown that may be connected to the arch. So there's a lot of hot takes about this. I think it fits pretty nicely into the necessity of this mythological arc that we've been looking at with Osiris, Isis, Ra, and Horus. So, Jordan, if you could read this passage from the Golden Bough for us.
Absolutely. The infant was the younger Horus, who in his youth bore the name Harpocrates, that is, the child of Horus. Him Buto, the goddess of the north, hid from the wrath of his wicked uncle Set. Yet she could not guard him from all mishap, for one day when Isis came to her little son's hiding place, she found him stretched lifeless and rigid on the ground. A scorpion had stung him. Then Isis prayed to the sun god Ra for help. The god hearkened to her and stayed his bark in the sky and sent down Thoth to teach her the spell by which she might restore her son to life. She uttered the words of power, and straightway the poison flowed from the body of Horus. Air passed into him, and he lived. Then Thoth ascended up into the sky and took his place once more in the bark of the sun, and the bright pomp passed onward jubilant.
Okay. So thank you very much. So yeah, Horus, Harpocrates, that's what we're looking at here. So what I'm seeing, first things first, the man in the bed that Trump is touching. Many people have pointed out that it looks like an age progressed JFK Jr., who would be in his 60s if he were alive right now. It's pretty hard to deny that. I find that to be really interesting. Also, the similarity of the robes that Trump is wearing looks very much like the magician robes of the major arcana tarot cards, right? I believe this is the first or second one, depending on how you count them. Jordan knows more about this than I do, because we're going to talk about the one that follows the magician card. And clearly MAGA has a reference to magic. There's been all this stuff that's been put out there about how MAGA is like some magician order in like the Satanic Temple or something like that. Whatever. That's not really the lens that I'm using to apply here. But I think, again, what we're looking at here is the story about the resurrection of Horus. We get a new little layer of this. It's interesting that he gets stung by a scorpion, and Jackie is associated with Scorpios Island, and there's this idea that perhaps that he has gone into hiding until the moment is right to strike against Set. So I think it is possible to possibly view Trump as there's like the raw solar authority that is perhaps like behind Trump, okay, in the form of Ra. But my understanding, the Thoth aspect, this is like the scribe and the tongue and the mouth of Ra. That is the role that Thoth plays. I'm not some sort of expert. That's kind of how I understand things. Not to mention all this QAnon stuff is talking about trusting the plan. Well, that would be kind of the job of Thoth, is to develop a plan as a scribe, as a messenger, as the mouth of Ra, as the solar power. So I find this all very interesting. And then that led to the next insight, and we'll talk about that in a second if we can progress to the next slide, Jordan. The card that immediately follows the magician card in the tarot deck, in the Rider-Waite tarot deck, is the High Priestess card. And this sort of led to this discovery. The High Priestess card has elements of Marian imagery, but also of Isis imagery. Clearly, you see the cross on her there, but you see the horns that carry the sun or the moon, depending on the tradition that we're looking at here. And I think here on Wikipedia, they're saying Hathor, but Hathor is an ancestor of Isis, so that we have studied. So in this High Priestess card, we see that both Isis and Mary are there, situated between the two towers. Now, that's very interesting when we look at this Sirius, the hero dog, or whatever. I don't even know how to assimilate this. I don't even know if the guy who made this, Hank Fellows, even is aware of the tarot card connection, but it is very intriguing that it's almost a perfect match onto this tarot card here. So the investigation into, I guess what I'm trying to say here is Trump sharing that healer meme, claiming that it connects to the resurrection of Horus. It connects to a complicated understanding of the merger of Ra and Thoth. And it also leads us into understanding where Isis is in the tarot deck, and perhaps gives us an insight into understanding how these things fit into 9/11. So that's what I'm going to say right there. I'll let you two comment on this.
Yeah, I would just point out what it's describing in this first paragraph with the Mercé. This is not what we're seeing in the image. The image is the Rider-Waite, and I have a lot to learn. But in the Mercé, and I have a deck somewhere here. It would take me too long to find the High Priestess card, but her crown is not the Horus crown. It's different. And so anyway, it's just fascinating to me. The Rider-Waite in general seems to be merging a bunch of these different
the Horus crown or the Hathor crown?
Well, I was just thinking the sun. I mean, this is the moon too. Like, that's another layer to this, right? As we read through the Golden Bough, well, initially it's the sun, right? But in this card right here, it is more the appearance of the moon. We have the crescent moon at the bottom, and it's blue instead of the glowing red that we saw in prior episodes. I think last week we had a lot of images of the sun, being held up by the horns. That's what I'm trying to refer
I got you.
to. I might be using the wrong language.
No,
So
you're good.
I just think it's really this this image right here is just so fascinating because it is distinct from some other tarot traditions that are mentioned in the paragraph. It's distinct from the original interpretations of Isis that the Golden Bough shares with us. And then, and yet, Frazer talks about how Osiris is more associated with the moon because of vegetation growth, which was very unintuitive to me, by the way. Intuitively to me, like vegetation would be associated with the sun, not associated with the moon. But nonetheless, that's what he says most of these cultures say. So anyway, it's interesting. Like this is definitely an evolution and a amalgamation of a bunch of different archetypes, and how we relate to them seems to shift.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I have not spent a lot of time with the tarot deck, so it was enlightening to me to even know that the high priestess was a reference to Isis.
In this particular image.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure, I would not categorically say, but I'm not sure if that's the case in the other images or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, it looks very Mary to me. Like
Yeah.
Mother Mary is associated with blue.
Yeah.
But it
What do you
really
think?
goes back to Isis of many names. It's like we almost have this bigger God with all these different aspects, and it's like we're playing with all of these different aspects of the whole divine feminine.
Yeah. What do you think, Ostic? You got anything to say about this?
No, I think you guys have completed what I had to say. I thought like I would say, oh, that guy looks like an age progressed JFK Jr., but that's the first thing you said. Then sat listening to you. I don't think I have anything to say, just that it's pretty interesting. And I also thought that the robes of Donald Trump in that AI generated image, it looked like maybe he was like a Jesus figure. And also, you mentioned the timing of it. It was posted on 14th of April, which is the Titanic Day, as we say. And like in India, it is like the day for a bajillion festivals on 14th April. So it's like the spring festival for a lot of things. That was
Yeah,
a interesting day to post that image, and I think you
definitely.
mentioned that, and it's Philip Stone's birthday as well. And I don't think that tracks particularly well, but yeah, that's what I had to say. It's like an important day, April 14th.
Yeah, for sure.
Wasn't Lincoln? When was Lincoln assassinated?
Well, I mean, that's the thing about, so, I mean, so the Titanic sunk, depending on how you're looking at it, right? Because this gets into like time zone issues. My understanding is the Titanic sunk like in the early morning hours of April 15th. I could be wrong about this. So you have like the Titanic disaster, you have the Lincoln assassination and his death, and like it's also tax day in America. So like you're talking about archetypal energies coming through the chronotope. It's death and taxes day. So it's interesting that he would, I don't know the exact time that he posted it and how this fits with time zones, but potentially resurrecting somebody on a death day is interesting, especially in the wake of Easter too.
I mean, what was even the caption of that image? What context did he post it originally? Like in the normie world, it's like
Uh,
out of the blue.
I don't. There's this
Is
whole
he like
thing.
reviving the Strait of Hormuz? It's like what is he doing?
Yeah, I didn't dig deep enough into it, but like and then like shortly thereafter, there's been this whole fight with the Pope, right? So like Trump and the Pope are going at it over immigration. So they're like that's probably a relevant. So Trump is positioning himself as like a Christ figure, maybe, but then taking on the vicar of Christ of the Catholic Church. And some people are saying it's like him announcing himself as the Antichrist or showing people that MAGA is this like derivative Christ cult or something. I don't know. I'm just saying what I see. What I see is, and perhaps this is just a Rorschach test for everyone, I'm seeing a message about Ra, Thoth, and Horus. And I don't think anyone else is really seeing that because they're not familiar with what we're into. But is it there? Is it really there? I gotta let the audience or you guys be the judge.
Just one thing, like before you
Sure.
continue, could you just tell in one sentence, like how how does it connect to Horus and Thoth, like this particular one?
The image of Trump as the healer.
Yeah. Is it just
I
because
mean,
the rebirth thing?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, also the architect of the plan, right? This
Oh yeah,
QAnon,
yeah,
these QAnon
okay, okay,
themes,
okay.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to
All right,
remember
this
what you were
headdress,
saying.
this headdress is getting hot, guys. Let's keep it going.
You can ditch it if you need to.
Yeah,
I've
we'll see.
definitely cast off my
Yeah, whew.
costume mid
Need to air
mid
this
show.
out.
Yeah, it's unfortunately probably not of the same quality materials
Yeah,
as
yeah,
we need to get you a silk one.
yeah.
Raise your
All right, let's keep.
vibration. That polyester crown is.
All right, Jordan, do I have you reading for this?
You do, you do.
Yeah, why don't you read for that?
Yeah, the transition from Isis to Mary as a celestial guide is rooted in the practical realities of ancient seafaring and a pivotal linguistic evolution. In antiquity, the star Sirius, representing the goddess Isis, was the Mediterranean's most vital navigational beacon. Its summer rising signaled the Nile's life giving floods, earning Isis the title Isis Pelagia, the protector of mariners. As Christianity expanded in the 5th century, St. Jerome's translation of the name Mary, Miriam, as Stilla Marie, drop of the sea, underwent a transformative transcription shift to Stella Marie, Star of the Sea. This linguistical pivot allowed the Virgin Mary to inherit the cosmic functions of Isis, shifting the star from a literal astronomical guide, Sirius, to a spiritual lighthouse that steers the ship of the soul through the moral tempests of the world. This cultural succession effectively preserved the ancient archetype of the Divine Mother as an unwavering light pathway, bridging the gap between Egyptian star worship and Christian devotion.
Thank you. So, I mean, we're going to look deeper into the boat imagery that surrounds both of these Divine Mother figures. I mean, the one thing I wanted to point out here, which I think the AI effectively addresses this. I think I could have more accurate star arrangements, but really for this slide than the ones that I do have. But I think the essence is communicated here. The thing that I wanted to also tap into, which also probably connects back to the serious dog hero dog book, is how the heat lamp, the lighting lamp that falls in the Truman Show is named Sirius, right? And obviously this is very relevant to the movie. I think within the first like 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, there's all these references to dogs, like Truman's reading like Dog Fancy magazine, and there's all the Dalmatian like jumps up on him and stuff like that. So clearly our attention is being brought to the dog star. Something I had never done before is interpret Sirius in connection to Isis. So now that we know this, I think we can go back and look at the Truman Show and get a deeper understanding of the allegory that's going on there. It makes a lot more sense that the spirit of Isis, of Mary, is protecting and guiding Truman and is perhaps responsible for the dropping of this light fixture that nearly kills him, but it also wakes him up to the fake reality that he's in. Or we could also tell a story about the revivification of Osiris if he is that figure instead. It is not lost on me, obviously, by choosing the actor Jim Carrey for this role. He has the same initials as Jesus Christ, right? So he's JC interacting with the star that is associated with the Great Mother, right? Either Isis or Mary. Not to mention, right? I think his town is like Seaport or Sea Haven or something like that. And then he gets on a boat, and that's how he goes on this quest and journey to get out of the fake world. And we're seeing that this all started with the dog star, with Sirius. So we're being told a story about this guiding spiritual force of the water too, and of boats. And that becomes more obvious in the next slide. So I've never really addressed this before in the commentary on the Truman Show, but I don't know if anyone really has. it's an important layer to understand that film, because clearly they want us to see this.
I really did not understand it until reading this particular section of the Golden Bough, and then immediately the Truman Show Sirius thing popped out. It to me, before, I was really just seeing it as maybe a wink about cosmology and what these things are and how we're in this staged reality and the stars are not what they seem to be on many levels.
Yeah.
But it being Stella Marie, it being the star of Isis, it's huge, huge impact on all of these rituals. It's a big deal.
Well, that raises an interesting question when we look at the Trinity test and Apollo 11. A lot of these things, when you start getting suspicious and investigating them more critically, there are all sorts of inconsistencies that are replete within all these events.
Mhm.
It makes you wonder. And because they're associated with the helical rising of Sirius, at least as it was in ancient Egypt, right, at the latitude that it was at, if these are being done for our own good. That's a
Sure.
crazy thing to say, that the Trinity test may be like the light falling from Truman's set.
Mhm.
The Apollo 11 event. These are the lights falling from the stage.
I Whether intentional or not, I do think that is their function. Even Downard speculates as much, not
Does he
everybody.
say that?
Well, not about that
I'm not
specifically,
calling you.
but
I just didn't know. That's interesting to
no,
me
no, no,
that he
I'm just
sees it
I'm
that way.
just maybe I overstated. Just going back to the revelation of the method and the two functions of it, the one function potentially to lull people back to sleep or have them check out because they're just overstimulated. Their nervous system can't even handle reality and handle truth. That is going to happen for some of us until we grow the capacity to really be with what is real and true around us. But for those who are ready, these events are an initiation into a greater understanding about what's happening. And so he's hypothesizing that some of that is intentional by the people making these events, right? That's part of his thesis. And I could definitely be embellishing or overstating how he talks about it. It's been a while since I've read the books. But if you zoom out enough multidimensionally, that is the function. I think Pandora's box is open. I don't think we can put humanity back to sleep. And these events just continue to accelerate humanity's awakening. And you could argue ascension, though, people may use different words or may be uncomfortable with
Mm.
that word. But never did I imagine I'd hear so many people just casually say, oh, yeah, nukes aren't real. I've been hearing
Mm.
that so much lately.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a growing, if a minority, it's still consciously a very powerful minority projecting into the field.
What do you think, Ostic?
Uh, I agree with a lot of things you guys said, but one thing I have a slightly different opinion on is the fact that what might that light represent. So you are projecting all you that you have learned about ISIS and its connection to Sirius, and you have said that this might open a new layer of interpretation for that movie. But you have to understand that someone like actual human being made that movie, and like movies is not reality. You cannot claim that okay, right, it's like onus mundus expressing itself or something. Movie
Mm.
people are actually staging things, so it's limited by the knowledge people actually have. The people staging things need to have that knowledge. Maybe I, sometimes I think a lot of different symbols they connect to all these major events. People talk about the eclipse symbol. People like someone I only mentioned the 811 thing. It's like some people reference 811 as a like a proof of things. Some people talk about a George Bush speech about it references
New
that.
World Order. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not that. The On his inauguration day, he gave a speech and he referenced a Bible verse and Thomas Paine verse. Thomas Paine quote.
Oh
And
yeah, the angel that rides the whirlwind.
yeah. So it's like people have different ways, but it's like everyone, including us, has a very narrow point of view. It's like a whole sphere, and we are only looking at
Right.
from one particular small angle. And we have whatever symbols we have, like whatever we can take, and someone else might have another symbol, but we cannot assume that that person also has our symbol. So I'm just thinking that he might not have woven in the thing about ISIS. He might have thought, oh, the serious thing, it's connected to 9/11 and all the other things. So I might as well put it here. It's like it's an indication of some higher power or something nefarious or whatever it is.
It
You might have thought.
it is interesting about the light falling. It does fall between two pillars. Like when you look at it from a different camera angle, it does, which sort of recreates the Sirius the hero dog too. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about?
hmm Also, like,
And it looks like the high priestess card we just looked at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the luminary
Mm-hmm.
between the pillars. Yeah, I
it
don't
could be
know what
that.
they know or don't
Like,
know, Austin, or what they intend. I think something that I'm increasingly persuaded by is the idea that some of these things are in the ether running through people unconsciously. I don't necessarily think people know.
yeah,
I
I'm
tend to
just
think that
saying.
the Truman Show people knew about the Sirius. Why go out of your way to label the light Sirius if you
I'm
don't
not saying that they did
understand?
not know. I'm
Yeah.
saying they knew about the serious thing, but they might not know about the ISIS connection. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they might have known that Sirius is something, and that is connected to,
Okay, I'll buy that.
yeah.
I'll buy that.
That's what I'm
I think
saying.
that's fair. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're foolish people or never. They have.
I think they're very smart. I actually think they might be here to help us in a weird, twisted way. It's kind
Are
of
the people in Sea Haven there to help Truman? Is Christoph helping Truman?
there are a few. There are a few that tried to break the script to help Truman, right? The paraglider, the love interest who broke the script.
It's true. Has
That's
the
true.
demiurge helped us?
Well, that's an interesting question if Christoph is interested in helping Truman. That's another question. That's
And
another question.
I'm kind of getting into territory of these things that feel bad and evil and against our
Mhm.
interest in this moment may in fact be pushing us towards our highest expansion and potential.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's murky. I don't think I'm being a little facetious with
This
these questions.
we got to go deep into Gnostic theology to get this, right?
We do,
Like
but
what was the demiurge's intention of creating a bastard creation?
I think, yeah, and I think there's more questions than that. And I'm very intrigued by the Gnostic perspective. I don't necessarily um I don't know. I think we're writing a new chapter. We're in a new age. Like we're seeing the
Mm,
old fall apart, and it's fascinating to go back and study these things, but I also think, we are entering a new era. So our understanding of
mm,
our relationship to all of those things, I think, is in flux right now.
yeah. All right, next slide. Only because it's relevant to all the themes that we're talking about here. I should have a little boat of Truman here. So this looks like a really cool book. I found this. I have not had a chance to review it at all, but Jordan mentioned Isis Pelagia. This seems to be a pretty serious scholarly work. Isis Pelagia, images, names, and cults of a goddess of the seas. I can't know. Can one of you make out the author? Laurent.
Um
Laurent
Lorenz
It's not.
Ford.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to give him or her that recognition there. And so we see Isis here on a boat or on the sea there, a wave or whatever that is. And then also we see here the apostles or worshippers of Jesus and Mary on the seas and appealing to the apparition of Mary and child in the heavens. And then, I've been so deep in the stuff. It's like, gosh, just Jackie and Jack are on boats all the time. And this is the Christina O. This is Aristotle Onassis's yacht that he and Jackie were on. It's named after his daughter Christina, which of course gets into again the Christic imagery. Christina means follower of Christ, and here we have, we've got Christina and Jackie together on the high seas. Just in my mind, I feel like I'm looking at Isis. I feel like I'm looking at Mary. And I know a normie would just go, it's just Jackie on a boat. Relax. Both of these things can be true.
Mm.
And Jackie, they're just always on boats. They're always on boats.
You have to present a bit more evidence about this one. I think I lean towards the normies on this one. Like, this is not enough evidence.
Well, how many images of Jackie? See, this is the thing, right? Like how many pictures of Jackie on a boat do I need to provide you for you to be like, oh yeah, she's Isis?
Not just images, just if you could prove that it was a part of her routine, or it's like she felt deeply about it, maybe then. Like, otherwise it's like
Well,
a
here's what I'll tell you
representation.
is that just Google Jackie and boats, okay? And she is on. Jack loves sailing. He was a Navyman, right? He was in the Navy. He sailed all the time. He had a boat called the Victura. They were always on different types of boats on their vacations, fishing. They went to Acapulco for their honeymoon, and he caught that fish, right? And then she gets with a shipping magnate. She marries a shipping magnate who is Aristotle Onassis, right? The man is Mr. Boat. He's Mr. Boat. And they are on all types of boats going to Scorpios Island. I'm not. If I have a million pictures of Jackie on a boat, does that make her ISIS? No, but it
just
contributes
bluffing.
to the huh?
I was bluffing. I was like quoting
Well,
you
how do I
into.
make it better? How do I make this better? I mean, I can
This is
probably
better
find
now.
I can probably find 50 images of Jackie on a boat if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Does that prove anything?
It is one data point in the mosaic that we've been exploring for weeks. I feel like the fashion quote does a lot of heavy lifting, and then everything
Yeah.
else kind of gets pulled into that framework. I don't think
I
we
think
need
to us,
one image
yeah, to
to
Ostic's point, I'm like, okay, well, the boat that she's primarily associated with Aristotle is called Christina, and so it's kind of like she's the vessel of Christ or something like that. And maybe if I squint, maybe that's not particularly strong. Like, maybe I'll find out more Isaac Marian connections to the boats that she was actually on.
The thing is that I think written words would not do it more justice, because I'm thinking about, like, how would you present? I think in a film that you could dramatize this on a board. You could dramatize important events on a board. That would make it so, like,
Mm.
it would could create associations. I'm just tossing out ideas. I know you're not writing a
You,
fictional play or something, but I'm thinking like
but
that would be easier to, weave in the symbolism and metaphors there. Like, rather than
we,
presenting evidence of 50 photos, people will say like, what is this? Who cares? But like, I'm
yeah.
just thinking.
Well, you know what I could do that would make it stronger would be if we got into the particular. I'm sure there's all sorts of stories about Isis Pelagia and boats, right? And Mary and boats. Like, oh, maybe one time there was a the ISIS was guiding a boat and a dolphin came up and said something, right? I don't know. I'm just pulling something out of thin air. And then if we find out that like that same story is almost replicated with Jackie, like a dolphin jumps on board the Christina O. I don't know how any knowledge of this, but if something like that happened, that would make it tighter, wouldn't it? If we saw an Isis Pelagia story spill into Jackie's
Yeah, that
life.
would, but it has to be a prominent story. It could not be a very niche story. It's like,
Well, it's what's niche. Niche is if we familiarize ourselves with it, it's no longer niche. It seems niche now. All of this stuff is
Okay, okay.
niche.
Just that, like Christianity, it's not niche. It's like certain things like cursing the fig tree. That's niche. Not many people know about it, but like Christianity
Mm,
is like doing the cross thing. That's not niche.
yeah,
So I'm thinking of like
yeah,
that.
okay.
Like it has to be a hit song.
Okay, a hit song. Here we go. Not a B side. Wait, so if I find an Isis Plasia connection to to Jackie, it can't be a B side. It has to be a hit. I don't even know. All right. And this is important to hash out. This is important to hash out. I'll see what I can do. I will see what I can do. This is burned into my brains. But we've got about 40 minutes or 35 minutes. So let's see if we can get this all finished up here. I think we will. Okay. Jordan, I think I have you reading for this. This is just
Yes.
something that we talked about earlier is that the Sirius connection to Mary became more spiritual in terms of guidance. But I looked a little bit into like the occult and esoteric, and Jordan might be more familiar with this. There actually is a lot of Jesus and Mary symbolism associated with with Sirius in the New Age and the occult. So I don't think it's completely gone away, and this might be helpful down the line. So Jordan, why don't you read for us?
Sure. This slide explores the profound esoteric and astrotheological intersection between Jesus and the star Sirius, illustrating how celestial mechanics serve as a blueprint for spiritual evolution. Historically and symbolically, Sirius represents the spiritual sun behind our physical sun, acting as a beacon of Christ consciousness that radiates high frequency light and unconditional love. From the alignment of the three kings, Orion's belt, pointing towards Sirius to herald the birth of the lights, to the mapping of Jesus' life into the 5 points of initiation. This connection suggests the Nativity is not just a historical event, but a recurring cosmic process. By viewing Mary and Jesus through the lens of Syrian star seed origins and the Stella Marie archetype, we see a bridge between ancient Egyptian mysteries and modern ascension teachings, where the star of the sea guides the soul across the turbulent waters of physical existence towards its divine source.
Right. So I did not know this. There is some conversation in these communities about whether or not the Star of Bethlehem actually is Sirius, which is fascinating to me. We've looked at other candidates for what that might actually be, but that's intriguing. And that the Magi themselves were devoted to this and has some connection to Orion the Hunter, which gets into
Mhm.
all these different space programs, especially Artemis that we've been looking at. Not to mention that Sirius is somehow part of uh, the induction into these mysteries and getting on our own ascension path. So this would kind of go into the 716 chronotope that we've been talking about. I don't have any strong feelings about any of this, but unlike what what we saw from what Frazer is, the serious imagery still persists in certain religious communities today as is associated with Jesus. It's not completely metaphorical. It's like it's a combination of astro and theology, an astrotheological symbol. It's still there. Is the point I'm trying to make here. I
Yeah,
don't have much to say beyond what Jordan read. It's just I'm sure this will be important at some point. I like the idea of initiation. It fits with the idea of the serious light falling from Truman Show, and we're being guided to wake up and get out of the false matrix.
it certainly does. Yeah. I'm very tempted to get into Star Bethlehem
Yeah.
conversations, but
Do
I
you
think
know? Do you think it's serious? Do you have
um
feelings about this?
what we've spoken about in the past is the Saturn Jupiter conjunction,
Right.
and that is just conceptually archetypally a really fascinating concept to me and overlays quite nicely with what I perceive to be the meaning of the cross and the
Mm.
meaning of Christed consciousness.
Hmm.
But Yeah, there are many scholars of this. I would be not doing it service to
Well,
give a
just
answer
touching
on the
on it. It
fly, but that's what has been most compelling just from an archetypal angle to me is that conjunction is it's a very alluring idea. Though they say the Star of Bethlehem is, like a couple of years ago, we had all these news articles of, oh, it's returning.
yeah,
I'm not sure what they perceive that to be.
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
recall.
Well, I don't unless Ostick wants to say something about it. I mean, I feel like I'm just really just putting this on the radar. I don't have anything else really profound to say about it. And we need to talk about Osiris not being the sun here. Do you want to weigh in, or should we progress, Ostick?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I don't know anything about Sirius, like in a way that
Yeah,
matters. Yeah.
yeah,
So I was thinking about the Joker thing. Like, just it was playing a why so
yeah.
serious, why so
Why
serious.
so
So
serious?
like, what does he mean to say? It's like he's saying that to Batman or other people. Well, is he like is Sirius supposed to represent like the order of things as they are, and he's like challenging the order? He's saying why so serious? I'm
Mm,
just thinking about that. Like, what is it? It's like serious representative of like our consensual reality or
yeah.
the established order. Just a
And that
thought.
could feed, yeah, that could feed into like Hermes being like a devil figure, the trickster figure that is the Joker, being antagonistic to that order. The other thing that obviously comes to mind is Back to the Future. This thing hits 88 miles per hour. You're going to see some serious shit, right? Like, of course, we talked about when the
Okay.
helical rising of Sirius is in Egypt, but we've talked about it. It's the dog days of summer. It happens close to this Lionsgate portal opening, whatever that means on 8/8.
Okay. 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 If he says that you're gonna see some serious shit, and in the end of the movie, when all things are done, there's you could see 9/11 on the screen, right? Have you
Yeah,
seen that? So it's like
yeah,
he means Sirius is associated with 9/11,
yeah.
like clearly.
Which
Like
would
they
then
knew.
mean that we're being guided. We're being guided, I think,
Okay.
that the events aren't as evil as we think they are.
I'm not sure about that, but like it's
Yeah,
it's a new dominion. That's what I think. It's like a
yeah,
dominion. You're under new management. That's what I feel about
yeah.
this whole thing. Uh, I don't know. I don't want to ascribe too
That's
many
it.
positive things to Sirius right now. I have a lot of
We're
anger.
just talking. I'm just telling you what's out there. I don't know what's going on. All right, let's go to Osiris and the sun.
Absolutely.
Jordan's going to be reading 2 paragraphs for us on this, but I think
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot to take in here.
we're rounding the home stretch here.
The idea that Osiris was originally the sun god, though popular among many modern scholars, rests on very slender and dubious evidence. Classical writers offer almost nothing explicit. Only Diodorus and Macrobius directly identify him with the sun, and their statements are vague or weak. The main modern argument, that Osiris's death and dismemberment fits the sun's daily setting, fails on two key points. First, if the myth described the daily solar cycle, it is unclear why the death and resurrection were celebrated in an annual festival rather than a daily one. Second, while the sun can be said to, quote, die each evening, it is hard to see how it is torn in pieces as the myth describes. Thus, the solar interpretation, though attractive, lacks solid support and does not adequately explain the ritual evidence. Osiris's death and resurrection are best understood as representing the annual decay and revival of vegetation rather than the daily setting and rising of the sun. The strongest evidence for this comes from the unanimous voice of antiquity, which consistently grouped the cults and myths of Osiris, Adonis, Attis, Dionysus, and Demeter as religions of essentially the same type. Greek writers such as Herodotus and Plutarch noticed the striking similarities between the rites of Osiris and those of Dionysus and Adonis, so close that some people at Byblus believed they were mourning Osiris rather than Adonis. And Herodotus thought the Greek Dionysus rites might have been borrowed or must have been borrowed from Egypt. Interpreting all these as sun worship would require severe distortion of both myth and ritual, while the vegetation theory explains them naturally and collectively. The mimic death of the god corresponds to the withering of crops or plants and his resurrection to their return in the next season. This view aligns with the seasonal timing of the festivals and the agricultural character of the societies that celebrated them.
Well, I think, to be honest, I find Frazer's argument pretty compelling. I mean, a lot of what the nature of the argument is really relying on these sources that I've not read intensely, so I'm not going to contradict him on any of it. It seems like the totality of the evidence really does favor the vegetative theory. So I don't really have any notes on this. If what he's saying is accurate. Yeah.
I wasn't super compelled specifically by the arguments of they have an annual celebration of it to rule out that it's the daily right. There's a lot of things that happen all the
Okay.
time that we take
Yeah.
special time in certain moments to really think about and focus on. But other than that, without reading his sources, I'm compelled that this vegetation theme is a little bit more universal and easy to apply to these different traditions versus the solar. But of course, the solar story is still very important. It's come up in plenty of other places throughout the Golden Bough. So I think too, like it's easy to right now we're honing in specifically on Osiris. That doesn't mean the solar myth is not highly influential.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, vegetation theory makes more sense. But like, what was even the time period of a sun worship? Like, did they worship it every day? Like, what did we read
That's
then?
a good
I think,
that's a good question. I mean, that's a good, we should compare what went on with the Ra rites with Osiris. And I mean, if they're only worshiping it one day a year, that would complicate matters.
yeah, I
They should
mean,
be doing it every day on this logic.
Well, but he
yeah,
is breaking it up into the daily sun cycle and the annual sun cycle, and those are different. But what he's saying, my like the way I took this is he's like, Osiris does not really fit into this daily sun cycle story that other writers are maybe trying to pigeonhole him into. The moon thing was less intuitive to me, but it made more sense as he talked about, well, the moon phases and it changes throughout time, and he
Mm-hmm.
gets really into there's all of these ritual, like you could call a lot of folk magic. Oh, you should only plant or harvest crops before or after the fullness of the moon, and how that really tied into a lot of vegetation ritual, a lot of agricultural ritual throughout the ages. um, but maybe you were going to get into that later. I'm not sure.
I'm not going to talk about Osiris and the moon much now, but
Next week, probably.
well, there is you know what, the thing, you keep bringing it up. I believe there's a chapter in the extended Golden Bough about
Yes, that's
Osiris
why
and
I
the moon.
keep going there.
We should.
Yeah.
Let's make a little. Maybe we'll make a little audiobook this week on that, because I feel like I need to review that, because it's not. I don't know if it is where we. I don't know if it's in the abridged. So
Oh, I'm not even
check that.
sure because I've been
Yeah.
going back to the beautiful
Yeah.
extended edition. Yeah.
All right, we have 23 minutes. I think we have
Okay.
like 5 or so. So let's go to the next one. Okay. What do I want to? Oh, this one. Okay. This is possibly silly, possibly something. So I'm neck deep in all the JFK stuff, and I'm neck deep in all the Golden Bough stuff. And there's just a word that JFK and Frazer both love to use, and the word is vega. I can't tell you how many speeches I have heard JFK use the word vigor in, right? Here's a particular quote that he used. A country is as strong really as its citizens. And I think that mental and physical health, mental and physical vigor go hand in hand. Okay. Frazer loves to use the word vigor as well, especially about the metaphysical life force that is transferred between deposed kings in the king kill ritual. Is this a silly thing to point out? I don't really use the word vigor that frequently, but both of these men love to use it. And I'm wondering, this is not great evidence, but when I think about people who do JFK impressions, like JFK impersonators, I think a lot of them, you got a couple of different phrases that you use, like "ask not" and "Ich bin ein Berliner," but I think vigor is like in the top 10. So and there's all different ways that Frazer uses it versus how JFK uses it. They're not necessarily using it in the same way and what they intend, right? There's like one's using it more in a magical way, and others using it more in a psychological and geopolitical way. But I had to make a slide on it. I'm just getting bombarded with the word vigor every time I sit down and do this research. So thoughts, we don't have to dwell long on this. It's not good evidence, but I don't think it's nothing.
Like, what is your hypothesis? It's like, has he read the Golden Bough? That is your hypothesis.
I don't know. It's more. No, I don't necessarily. I don't really have a hypothesis, but if you were to ask me, which I think you are, my hypothesis is not so much he's like, hey, I'm going to emphasize the word vigor so you get the hint that you need to understand I'm acting out the Golden Bough. I think it's just something that he liked to say, and it's just it's a synchronicity that is. I think it's more the universe pointing us to this than JFK himself.
I mean, you only use that word, but to motivate others. It's like it's like Hotler. He might be saying things like that if he translated his German.
Yeah.
Bigger. I'm not conflating them, but it's like, he's a person there, and he's trying to rally his masses. So that word is a strong word. It's like, because I think I sent you that speech about, I think that was Eric Schmidt of previously of Google. He was a Google CEO for a long time. Then he
Eric
he
Schmidt.
said that,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to do we need to channel all our energies into this AI thing. We need to have government support. It's like, you know they want to, they have a goal, and they want us to go towards that goal, and they use those words energies and everything because they want our life to revolve around that. It's like we should change our lives so it has more of that, and so that their goals get fulfilled. And I think that's the case with JFK as well, in a way that he needs to accomplish some goals. And I think he might have had that thing in mind about the space program later. That's why he needs to, you know have the pulse of the people. He needs to have that. That's why you might use those words, those, because his speeches are pretty iconic. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I mean, that's literally what I thought about what pharaohs did. Like, pharaohs documented reason for building those pyramids was that you had to do this for your country. It's like, I mean, it's just your civilizational legacy that you're going to leave. That's exactly what
Yeah,
we
that
thought about
changed
pyramids.
that really changes the tenor of those words, right? Like, you may not understand what I'm doing here, but it's for our own good in some way. That's I kind of same deal with the pyramids. You don't understand why we got to build these massive structures, but it's good for the nation in a way that'll become obvious later.
Yeah.
Jordan, do you want to weigh in on this, or should we go to the next one? I just think we have 20 minutes or so.
Let's keep going.
All right, let's
I
keep going.
talked a lot today.
Yeah, we have. Okay, this one is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I was looking at the White House portraits, and I was struck by how the official White House portrait for JFK clearly has him with the red hair, with the auburn hair. And this is a thing where when the sunlight would hit him directly during like high noon or whatever, the redness and the auburn nature of his hair became very visible to everyone's right. Didn't really show up in print, didn't really show up in dark settings, but he was a redhead in a way, in a certain type of light. And the White House chose to memorialize him with this portrait. It's interesting too that it's so brown, which is intriguing in and of itself. But we looked last time about how Osiris or Set, depending on the lens that you want to look at, is associated with redheaded men. Now, the way that Frazer tells us is that redheaded men, redheaded cows were cremated, and then their ashes were put on the grave of Osiris to make the crops grow, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't happen with JFK. He's not cremated. He's actually buried at Arlington Cemetery, as the story goes. So, but it does, the redheaded nature of it does feed into the priority that is put on that in the Osirian rituals. And the reason for that is because the way that the corn grows in Egypt doesn't grow like in America with the genetically engineered corn, or however we've accomplished this with the golden yellow corn. It's like a golden copper or red color, right? And that's how red gets associated with the sacrificial red men for Osiris, because he is a corn god. So I'm just pointing out here the potential connection between redheaded JFK and the corn. It's not perfect because he doesn't get cremated, but there might be other mitigating factors that take that into consideration. Unless we were to find that Osiris himself was redheaded, although he's portrayed as green skin, not necessarily redheaded. And does that mean that JFK isn't Osiris because his skin isn't green, or was that be a little too on the nose and people would figure that out? Like, it's a little hard with these correspondences. How perfect does it have to be? Like JFK wasn't cremated. Does that mean that this argument is void? JFK's skin isn't green. Does that mean he's not Osiris? Like, but the redhead is there, and the corn is red. Okay.
Just think that like the sunlight making his hair red might be significant in a way, because like
It might be.
he is Apollo in a way. It's like being in the sun reveals his true form in a way.
I like that. See, Ostic? That's why if something happens to me, you're going to have to continue this.
No.
I like that a lot.
So it might have that. But I don't think you have to have perfect correspondences with literal resemblances, but like we have enough evidence of like archetypical and spiritual alignment with those things. So I don't think anyone even wants to hear that, because yeah, what are even images actually? What are those images?
What are they? Yeah.
Who can? These are just things people attribute to certain energies. Yeah.
Well, this gets back to the whole conversation about sympathetic and contagious magic and what are images. Were we looking at like voodoo dolls or something here? Jordan, you want to weigh in, or should we go to the next one?
Let's keep trucking.
Yeah. Okay, this is pretty cool. So I was just kind of digging more into Jackie in Egypt. She was given lots of different things for her involvement in rescuing the Temple of Dinder and the other temples that were part of the complex from the dam project, right? And here we see a gift that was given to her, the statue of a striding man. It's given to her by, I believe this is the president or prime minister of Egypt at that time. And I think it was on display or it was given to her about the time that the King Tut exhibit came to DC, and it ran for a considerable period of time. So why is this interesting? Something I've not made enough of a connection with is how important it is for Isis to rescue things from the water, right? She rescues Osiris from the water, right? She finds his body parts, right, from the water. That's what Jackie's doing. Jackie, by saving these temples that are connected to Isis and Osiris, she's saving them from the water. And perhaps that was obvious to you too. I had not made that connection as strongly as I should have previously. Something else I want to point out, if I can read it, this is so small, it's cramming so much information here. I have neglected this book, that the Jonathan Cott Isis and Osiris book. This is the one that Jackie is very involved in putting out. It has a subtitle, Exploring the Goddess Myth. I found that to be intriguing, that it's got a particular emphasis on Isis. So I like that. The other things I'm going to point out here real quick, the King Tut exhibit that came to Washington during the Kennedy presidency, that they were there the opening night of. So it's like Jackie and JFK, they show up, they open this thing and inaugurate it for everybody else to come there. It's like a blueprint for JFK. King Tut is like the living avatar of Osiris or Horus, however you want to talk about it, right? There's this question about them transforming into different entities upon death, right? King Tut is a boy king. He is a boy that became king. What is like the characteristic that everybody points out about JFK? That he became president at 43 years of age, right? That he was like the youngest guy to ever become president. And people treated him sometimes like he was a boy, right? That he wasn't a full man. He wasn't the elder statesman, okay? Like he wasn't taking all that seriously. And in addition to that, this boy king dies in office, not in 3 years. I think it's like 9 or 10 years, depending on the record that you look at. And there's some speculation about how he died. I think the general consensus is right now that he died in an accident or an infection or something like that. I'm not some expert. I didn't go too deep into it. He's like a crushed skull and a crushed leg. And did he fall? Was he pushed? Did someone hit him with something? I don't know if they really know. But he could have been assassinated. And for a while, people thought that was a viable theory, although that's not really the view now, from what I understand. So I guess what I'm trying to say here, this King Tut exhibit is a big deal and perhaps foreshadows the untimely demise of JFK himself. That's I could go into more, but I feel like that's appropriate with 14 minutes left or 10 minutes left.
Good.
Okay. That was interesting. I like the idea of Jackie being Isis saving things from the water. Mm-hmm. I feel like that works for me. I feel like that really makes it a little tighter. Okay. What do we have next, Jordan? Oh, the Mona Lisa. So I was like, okay. Well, another big cultural exchange program that Jackie orchestrated is that she managed to convince the French government to loan the Mona Lisa to the United States. This is a whole thing, right? We've seen this with like the Pieta and all these other pieces of like priceless artwork that somehow just gets shipped over here and special provisions are made for. And like, this is like a normal, okay thing that we don't even really question. Like, why do we have to do this? And she did this early on. I think this was 62 or 61. It's escaping me right now. And there's a lot of reasons why this is interesting. The Mona Lisa is kind of like a divine mother figure that is potentially connected to Mary and to Isis. There is, in like fringe circles in the Da Vinci Code, Da Vinci made the Mona Lisa. There's talk about it being an anagram for Ammon and Isis, that the Mona Lisa can be jumbled up and read as a tribute to Isis. And you can say, okay, that's reaching, that's not very viable. But I think we all know how these Renaissance painters worked and how deeply they were involved in cryptic messages and the occult. That doesn't seem low to me. That seems actually pretty probable given what we know. There is sort of a slight veil on the Mona Lisa. I did not zoom in on it to pick it out, but of course that could be seen as a reference to the veil of Isis, which we also see Jackie seemingly wear at the funeral. And I think you could talk about it possibly being positioned in a way that has its inheritance to the Madonna and Child and to Horus and Isis. Now, what I found to be the most interesting thing about this is something like 2 million people came to see this painting. People from all over who'd probably never been to an art museum in their entire life were like, I have got to see the Mona Lisa. And so they made the voyage to DC and New York to see this thing. I think we had it for 88 days, which is interesting in and of itself, given what we've looked at with the Lionsgate portal and all the other stuff. It is almost like before Dallas, there was a veneration of a mother goddess figure via people going on long pilgrimages to see this painting. I wonder if aliens are real, which I don't really think they are. That's a whole thing. But let's just say they are. I have a feeling they would look at our culture and say, "Oh, they or like some distant relation of ours in the future, like 2,000 years in the future, they're looking back at our history and they're going, oh yeah, this is when they venerated the mother goddess before they did the Osiris ritual." I think they would kind of talk about us like this. It just sounds crazy because this happened like 20 some years before I was born, or like 17 years before I was born. 2 million people lined up to see this painting, and you could only see it for 6 seconds. The lines were so long, you were only allowed 6 seconds to view it, which is probably relevant in and of itself.
The fact that it was only there for 88 days itself is like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
but like,
What are we doing? What are we doing?
it's a and like, even if like most people call Da Vinci Code like full of conspiracy theories and everything, but like, how did he get this information? Like, I don't think he's very smart enough to know like this
You mean
Amon
Dan
Elisa.
Brown?
Yeah, Dan Brown,
I don't.
he's an author. He might have sources. I'm just thinking about like it might be in the cultural zeitgeist somewhere where he could have picked it up. I think Da Vinci Code is about what is it? It's about like the family of Jesus.
Smells. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like the bloodlines there or something.
Yeah,
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 about
yeah.
having kids that are
Exactly.
still alive. I've never seen it. I should see it.
Yeah, I've read that book. I used to read it.
You know, it's funny when I first like woke up to like deeper truth subjects, like, and I would try to tell my normie friends about it, and they're like, "Is this like the Da Vinci Code?" And I'm like, "I've never seen that movie, but I think I understand how like condescending you're being right
It's similar
now."
to I've never read or seen The Secret, and I really can't comment on its quality, but in a way it kind of makes me feel shielded, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
what I'm drawing upon, regardless of its efficaciousness. I might have made
with
that word
this,
up.
yeah, and given what we're talking about here, the Mona Lisa being like a divine mother figure. I mean, just Jack, you should see, because I've watched all this video footage, and you know she's unveiling it, and it's like she's standing right next to. Look how like it's almost like it's like she's like creating this bond between her and it. She's like, look at it, look at me, look at it, look at me. Like that's me, I'm it. Like who's the work of art here? And
Uh,
it's also kind of a microcosm of the idea of a form taking on flesh and blood reality, theory versus pragmatic eruption.
uh, that's I don't know how to say anything about it. It's like it's too good to be true in a sense that
Yeah.
like before the event, this whole ISIS thing is happening. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to believe it, but like, if I believe it, a lot of things would change. That's the thing. It's like, wow, this
What
is
would
like,
change? What would
is
change
that
for you?
is that there's it's like they knew about it. Like today itself, you told me about like them everything being done on their marriage anniversary, and then it's like that thing was like a Schrodinger thing for me. It was like I don't know if it's true or not. It exists. It's strong, but I don't know it's true. But like today, it became true. It's like, oh, yeah, that is actually the marriage. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
And like I don't know what to infer from that. If they were consciously doing that, if they were consciously even before the thing, maybe it could like align. It could be very innocent in a way that she wants to align herself with ISIS in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a I'm speaking a lot of non like nothingness. So I think Jordan should take over, or you should continue.
Well,
Like,
can we just go to the last slide? It's just an image. It's just an AI image, and then we'll call it a day. I love that. I love the AI. I think it's getting so good, and it's getting to the point where this is what I see. This is how I see it. Osik may hate the AI, but I didn't know what to do with this image. I had the AI just make something, and I just threw it in there at the end. This is kind of how I see reality. I see an eternal script manifesting with slightly different qualities every time. So
I think that's how they see it too. Jackie
yeah,
and
I think so.
Jack.
I think so too. All right, Jordan. Last words.
This was super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to get more into the Osiris moon connection
Yeah.
potentially. I really enjoyed the brief but fascinating chapter on Isis herself, though I was really surprised there wasn't more. I feel myself wanting, so perhaps I need to go find something else to read. But I really enjoyed today's conversation, and I've been looking at different Reddit forums on the Golden Bough, and it's funny, it's in mainstream, Fraser's highly discredited. And, I expressed my own critiques, and we brought up
Yeah.
other critiques at the very beginning of this series. And so it's not that I think it's total, you know what I mean? Like, there are valid criticisms of the approach, but it's funny because some of these Reddit threads are like, "Oh, this is just like totally bunk anthropology, et cetera," and it's as we sit here and cross apply it to modern day, it's just a funny place to be. I don't
Yeah.
think really we're going to persuade anybody who's not already seeing the metaphysical plane permeate into the material. It But it is endlessly fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you being along on the ride
yes,
today. It was a rough night for me last night, and I think this came out much better than I anticipated.
Yeah.
yeah.
Alrighty.
Just one thing about those redditors. One
Mm.
thing, one final comment is that even if the model, what if they don't prefer JG Fraser, they might prefer someone else, and that model might explain a lot of things. But if powerful people in themselves believe in Fraser's model, and then they do things accordingly, as we might think, or like a few things like happen according to that particular model, it doesn't have to explain every single thing of life. It's that people expect from these stories to explain everything, like the way we're living now. And since our society has become so secular, we don't it does not even cross our mind. It's like it feels so far away, all these things. But in a way that these things are happening, and they need not happen at a very large scale, but they need to happen at a certain place, and they have an effect that ripples out to the general public, trickles down, or you could say. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that, like,
I very much agree.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people really believe in this stuff, and they've embedded our media and programming with it to a ridiculous degree. So it is totally unavoidable, in my opinion, now. If you wants to really understand the psyops, the culture, the art, the power structures around us, I don't think you can skip knowing about the Golden Bough, honestly. But you know,
Oh, I
maybe
forgot to tell
we,
you guys.
yeah.
I was just going to tell us we hit 2,100 subscribers. So
Oh,
it's
congratulations,
good.
Luke.
Oh, and I got, I'm going to be interviewing Based Lit on his
This
book
week.
on Thursday. So,
That will be
runes.
fun.
So that'll be good.
That's good.
Mhm.
That's
All right.
good.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
I'll
thank
see you
you
guys.
to anyone who stuck through watching this.
Yeah, it's
Let
a
us
long one.
let us know what you
This
think.
might be the longest one we've done.
It might be.
Yeah.
Longest in a while. We used to do longer.
That's true. That's true.
I think we did one that we broke up into 2 parts or something.
Hmm.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.